Draft, right? Are we all set? Okay, we're back in session after the special meeting. City Attorney, is there any reportable action?
No reportable action.
With that, we'll adjourn the special meeting at 6:07 and return at 6:12 for the regular meeting. To the Selma City Council regular meeting. It's June 5th, 2023. It's 6:12. Thank you for working with us on our delay from our closed session that went a little bit long. We're in the Selma City Council chambers and 1710 Tucker Street in Selma. The teleconference phone number is 301-715-8592. The webinar ID is 891-6864-5005. When on the phone, if you wish to address council during the public comment portion of the agenda, press *9 to raise your hand, and we'll select you from the meeting queue. Press *6 to unmute and mute yourself. Tonight, our invocation will be led by Pastor Melvin Whittle of the First Friendship Baptist Church. Welcome, Pastor. Thank you for coming.
Loving and gracious, divine God, we are gathered in this city council meeting. We seek your guidance and your wisdom. We humbly ask for your help as we make decisions that shape our city's future. We ask that you grant each leader the ability to listen to one another with open hearts and minds, finding common ground for the betterment of our community. Guide them, dear Lord, as they deliberate on city resolutions, that they may choose wisely and prioritize the well-being of all residents. Help them to seek justice, compassion, and fairness in their votes and actions. So, Lord, we ask your blessings over this meeting tonight. May their efforts be blessed with unity, collaboration, and shared vision, a prosperous and harmonious city. And we thank you, dear God, for your divine wisdom. And we trust and open our hearts to your guidance. And we thank you for all things. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Guerra,
Here.
Councilmember Mendoza Navarro.
Here.
Councilmember Trujillo,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cho,
Here.
Mayor Robertson.
Here. Potential conflicts of interest. Any council member has a potential conflict of interest may now identify the item and recuse themselves from discussing and voting on the matter. Agenda changes or deletions. To better accommodate members of the public or inconvenience in the order of presentation, items on the agenda may not be presented or acted upon in the order listed. Additions to the agenda may be added only pursuant to California Government Code Section 54954.2B. Oral communications. At this time, any member of the public may address the city council regarding any item over which the council has jurisdiction. No action or discussion will be taken on any item not on the agenda. Issues raised will be referred to the city manager for review. Members of the public are asked to limit their remarks to 3 minutes and to direct all their comments towards the city council. Do we have any oral communications at this time? Do we have anybody on the phone or online who would like to say anything?
As a reminder to those online, please use your raise your hand feature and we will add you to the meeting queue.
That will move on to the consent calendar. All items listed under the consent calendar category are considered routine. The complete consent calendar will be enacted by one motion by roll call vote. For purposes of the discussion, any council member may have an item removed from the consent calendar and made part of the regular agenda. The council can then approve the remainder of the consent calendar. Do any council members have any items or an item they would like removed tonight? I would like to remove item 4. Is there a motion to approve items 1 through 3 and items 5 through 9?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Guerra,
Yes.
Councilmember Mendoza Navarro. Yes. Councilmember Trujillo,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cho,
Yes.
Mayor Robertson.
Yes. Right, item 4.
The item before you is a consideration of a resolution to give settlement authority to the city manager and the human resources manager for all liability claims against the city and workers' comp claims up to $50,000 for the city manager and $25,000 for workers' compensation for the human resources manager and $15,000 for liability claim.
Thank you for that. I'm bringing the matter back to council. I'm the one that has to pull this off. And I have issues with this just because I had the same with the buying policy for the buying limit there, which was increased by the council. This is just kind of for the position itself. I think it's important that there not be this kind of limit for a couple of reasons. One, I think the limit's too high because the city council should know if there are issues coming up. And some of the issues, I mean, that's what we're here to do. And I think a $50,000 settlement authority limit means that the council may not be made aware of issues that are happening in the city from liability claims. And so I would be more comfortable if that limit were lower. I went with the purchasing, I went with the $25,000 limit. So I would be more comfortable with the $25,000 limit. I think point two, I just think it sets up too much of the potential for too much purview by the city manager and by the HR manager. I would feel more comfortable, since we're governments about checks and balances, that we know what the city manager and the HR manager are settling, not just for our information, but also kind of like why we require two signatures on each check, a counter signature requirement, equivalent of that with settling these claims. Also settling claims sometimes, I mean, I've seen them in my experience, they can turn into something a lot bigger. It's, sometimes the more eyes you have on it, the more discussion you have in closed session with liability claims, the better, if these claims could somehow snowball. So for those three reasons, my preference would be for the limit to be 25,000. And for the HR manager, that could remain at 15,000, but I would want to cap it at 25,000.
Thank you, Mayor. And just for council's information and background, normally when we receive recommendations from IRMA about settlements, they've already done the analysis of what is a reasonable amount to settle for. And we normally, even when we bring it to council now, what we present is what IRMA has recommended. And so that wouldn't change if it would make council feel better or, to keep that oversight over liability and workers' comp claims. What we can do is anytime we can provide a monthly report as to claims that were settled within that authority. It's more for expediency rather than anything, because some of these claims do go on for a long while, and then we get a recommendation for settlement and then it has to be turned over like that, right? So it really is more for expediency, but we would be more than happy to generate reports on those liability claims so that the council can continue to see, what claims are out there, what's being settled. But like I said, those the amount of settlement is always pretty much all the time, and correct me if I'm wrong, Janie, but for the most part determined by IRMA already. Yeah.
Okay, I have a quick question, and this goes to our city attorney. In regards to the settlement claim, even if IRMA did say this is an amount that we want to settle, I'm just going to use workers' comp. Even if that was something that they settled with, does it mean that the claimant will not get an attorney or try to sue the city anyway? They still can sue the city, correct?
If they do not accept the offer, they could still go forward with some type of lawsuit. But the authority that they recommend, the authority that they give the city and the amounts that they recommend, they would then take to the claimant and then ask them to accept. And that's the authority that you guys would be approving, is allowing, instead of bringing it to council, the recommendation from IRMA before we have to present it to the claimant, we would have to go through the process of bringing it to you guys. And the longer that period goes, the harder it becomes to settle, because maybe they already have an attorney, maybe they're already expending money, maybe that they're having to spend more on medical, things like that.
And you're saying because it needs to be expedited, but how many really have come? I mean, we've had a handful, I would say, in the times that I've been around.
Right. They're few and far between.
Right.
But usually when they do come, it's something that we have to decide on pretty quickly. sometimes it's not something that will even rise to that $15,000 level at all. And it's important to remember too that the 50,000, for example, is a max. So that Irma will say, we think that the claimant will settle for 25,000, but just in case we want, authority for 50,000. And so it wouldn't always rise to that $50,000 level, even if we give the authority. But yeah, they're very few and far between, to your point.
And then my next question, again to the city attorney, what's best practice? I mean, you have other cities, what are they doing?
I couldn't speak to the amounts off the top of my head. I wouldn't say that this would be out of the realm by any means. I would think that at a minimum, 25,000 would be normal for other cities as far as, especially when you're talking, some of my cities have a lot less population than Selma. Selma kind of falls more in that mid-range for Central Valley cities. So I think anything 25,000 and up would be normal, but I don't think 50,000 is an unreasonable amount.
I have a couple of questions. So just to go back and reiterate what I understood and what I understood in the past, how the operation is. The city manager works with Irma in regards to the employees. The city manager has a full line communication with Irma. Irma does the investigation, does the due diligence, passes it over him. He comes back to us, notifies us when there's a liability. I could see the three factors of what the mayor is stating, but also I can also see the fact that the time sensitive and also the city manager has the right and has the communication with Irma. We don't. So I'm just because we're approving, or I would approve the 50,000. We're still going to be going through the conversations through with Irma because it's a liability factor. And I know they would ask us to go into some kind of discussion in regards to, because that's their practice, correct?
Correct.
So I don't see an issue with the fact that the city give the authority to the city manager and the HR person the ability to discuss this and bring it back to the city because of the fact that they should be doing that anyway. So I don't have an issue with the amount. I just think that the practice has been being practiced already. It's just we're actually putting a number to it, and we're actually not gonna. I'm more positive we will get a information, and Irma is doing the due diligence. They are passing it over to our city manager, and they're the ones that actually talk about a liability with workers' comp in regards to our employees. So in my opinion, I think it's okay. I think it gives the ability to our city manager the authority to be able to expedite and come back and share with us the information.
And I would agree as far as having like a quarterly report or, like a timely report on this, because you're right, workman's comp claims are very time sensitive. Like you have to do something with them. And if you're waiting for approval on council and there happens to be, no consensus of being able to have a quorum, then that just delays that process. And like you said, it's going to have to be a decision that has to be made that day. There's no wiggle room for us to have time to think about it. And since, we're working with experts already in the field, then they would know, and we have our attorney as well, but I would agree with having like a quarterly report on this.
We can make sure that happens.
Oh, what's our limit now?
Everything comes to council now.
I thought,
And we don't hear too many that often. It doesn't happen that often. And in terms of the expediting, it's usually lawyer on lawyer. So expediting means like 2 weeks, and we're always 2 weeks out. So, I'd be comfortable with the report. I'd be comfortable with 25,000, but it's whatever the council decides. Okay.
I'm comfortable with the recommendation our attorney made, 25,000.
Are you making a modified motion?
Yep, making a modified motion.
I'll second that. Call the roll, please. 25,000.
25,000.
Councilmember Guerra,
Yes.
Mayor Robertson,
Yes.
Councilmember Mendoza Navarro.
No.
Councilmember Trujillo. Mayor Pro Tem Cho.
Make a motion to approve the recommendation or this resolution with the added language to get quarterly reports.
I'll second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Mendoza Navarro,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cho,
Yes.
Councilmember Guerra,
No.
Councilmember Trujillo. Mayor Robertson.
No. Okay. That we will move on from our consent calendar to our regular business. The first item is the presentation of the 2023-2024 draft budget.
Actually, Mayor, if it pleases the council, we have NHA advisors here and they will be hitting significant traffic on the way back home. So they requested if it was possible that council move their item up on the agenda, if it's okay.
I have no objections. Anybody have any objections? Okay, have at it. Let me set it up. We're going to be doing item 11, flipping it with 10. And this will be a consideration of a resolution approving the plan of finance and engaging the financing team related to the 2023 lease revenue bonds wastewater collection infrastructure upgrade projects. There we go.
Yes, I would like to introduce Eric Scriven with NHA Advisors. He's going to discuss the work that we've been doing over the last year or so to get our ducks in a row to be able to look at our lease revenue bonds that would potentially fund our wastewater collection infrastructure upgrades, in particular, the Dinuba line, the Amberwood East Selma trunk line, and other lift station projects. As you saw in the consent calendar, one of the things approved by the council tonight was the reimbursement agreement with Raven Custom Homes to be able to reimburse the city for the sewer line along Dinuba if this project happens. And so we're very thankful that Eric Scriven is on our team and looking at the numbers and marketing this funding for us. So go ahead, Eric.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the council and staff. It's really wonderful to be back in town. Excuse me. And thank you very much for your consideration on the traffic issue. We have a short presentation that just gives a little background on the financing project and the objective and the projects that are being considered for that. Some of this remains in flux. There will be another opportunity for City Council to weigh in on certain aspects of it. This is really just to give a overview once again on this very important project and also hire the team, which happens to be the same financing team that executed the pension restructuring transaction last year. And I do have folks from the law firm of Norton Rose are watching, and then Rick Brandis with Brandis Tallman Oppenheimer is the firm's name, is here with us as well if there's any questions that you'd like to ask. So background, we always think it's important to talk about the background and the objective. The background is we've been talking about both of these key infrastructure projects for many, many years now. And I think it's important to have stated for the record that these projects will create significant benefits once these projects are installed. The wastewater projects, particularly the trunk lines on the east side of town and on the north side of town. Jobs, which are important. And we made some unequivocal statements in this because there will be jobs created. There will be additional economic development, and the tax base will be enhanced from this new development. There'll be new housing stock. There's been a bit of, there has been infill development, but we're talking about a significant number of brand new homes on the north side and the east side particularly that would be developed once these projects are installed. And then another not to be forgotten objective that will be met is some of the state mandates on housing would be handled or taken care of from this project. So the objective and why we're here, we've been talking about this for a while, is the city does not have a wastewater enterprise. So the options are limited. So we want to be very prudent on how the city finances these improvements, which are critical to unlocking the benefits that we just talked about. And I think what you've done in the past, recent past, and what you're doing tonight, as far as approving some reimbursement agreements for parties that will benefit from these trunk lines on the north side for the reimbursement agreement tonight, but also the reimbursement agreement that you've already approved for the east side. That's critically important. We've been waiting for that. There's been a lot of negotiations, and I think that's important with respect to doing this financing in a prudent way, which is what we all want. Next slide. Am I trying to do it? Okay. So the city right now, the working number that we're working with is about a $20 million funding. But the primary projects that I would note are at the very top, the top two, the east side Selma trunk line and the north side, the Dinuba trunk line. Those two total about 11 or $12 million. The other projects are important. They unlock other development in various places within the city. And I think that those are some of the things strategically that your city manager and assistant deputy manager are evaluating along with your public works folks to decide which are the key and critical projects. But we know the top two are critically important, and those are ready to go. The design and the bid packages, I'm told we can have things rolling by early September. So we want to make sure that's noted. The other projects that round out the $20 million project funding number are anticipated to be ready for bidding or development and construction anywhere from 12 to 18 months from now. Do I have that right, Fernando? Any questions as we move along? So the plan of finance is really very straightforward. In fact, you did the same type of a transaction in 2015. You have a lease revenue bond issue that is outstanding that goes to 2036 or 2032. That's the maturity, but it's essentially the same type of financing structure, which is it is a lease back, and it's payable from the general fund. There are leased assets that you have to pledge. From a legal standpoint, you have to have the amount of assets that you're pledging as leased assets that have to be equal to or greater than the loan amount that we're funding. And we're expecting that loan amount to be $20 to $22 million because we have to have a funded cash reserve for the bondholder security, and there are some costs. And the expectation right now is to fund about 2 years of interest during the construction of the two trunk lines, so that there's no payments that are needing to be made on those portions of the financing during the 2 years. And then afterwards, reimbursements should start to accrue from the reimbursement agreements. That's the current thinking right now, but we're still talking about it, and we'll have a better structure that's well baked, if you will, when we come back to you in a month or two. So I didn't mention that we have talked with we've had a variety of approaches on this bond. I know that iBank had been looked at, but there were some detriments to that approach because of the flexibility to prepay which is an important factor in what we want to do here. We want to be able to prepay bonds. So we remove the debt off the city's balance sheet, the general fund's balance sheet, when we receive reimbursements. And iBank wasn't as flexible on that. They require 10 years before you can do any prepayments. The other thing that we had looked at very closely was commercial banks. There was a lot of flexibility with commercial banks to have prepayments, even more flexibility than, you know, we're needing for the transaction, but they were very flexible. But as we all know, the banks are in disarray right now. About, what was it, early March, all the banks really started to pull back their horns and the rates shot way up so that it's not even competitive. So what we're advising for this project is a public bond that's sold to investors. Rick's firm will sell those bonds to investors, and we can get a 30-year term where the banks, some banks would entertain a 30-year, but generally speaking, that's a longer term than the banks really want to do. We're going to get the flexible prepayment terms. There is the ability to pick the right moment in the marketplace. And we anticipate getting the benefit of a credit rating, which the city has a credit rating with Moody's. It's a very good credit rating. It's the equivalent of an A+ with Standard & Poor's. So we're still evaluating some of these things. The annual payment for the $20 million transaction is estimated to be about $1.4 million a year.
What's the coupon rate on that?
The yield, the coupon can change depending on each, but the yield is what matters for each of the maturities. And I think we're looking at a 4.3, 4.4 right in there. And again, the important factor here that we've been pushing for as we pull this transaction together is the flexibility to prepay when we get reimbursements from those building permit fees from the two developments, so that we can get that loan off the city's balance sheet.
Is there an additional point that's charged for that?
There is a bit of a rate penalty for that privilege, that earlier optional redemption, but we've running the numbers and it really makes sense. That's a key part of the plan of finance.
We know how much that penalty would be.
It's probably 10 to 20 basis points, which is 0.1. I'd say more like 0.2. To the extent that we can narrow that to a certain number of bonds at a certain years, that helps. And we're working on trying to minimize that rate penalty as well. I think next. This is just a slide for the record of the lease-leaseback transaction. For a lease-leaseback transaction, you have to have a sort of an intermediary so that you can lease-leaseback. And the city does have its own public financing authority. So basically, the city and the public financing authority lease and lease back the properties. That creates the ability to have a flow of lease payments that can then be assigned to a trustee who pays the bondholders. It's a very, very common bond structure, and the city has everything it needs to effectuate that structure. In fact, you've done it in 2015. Next.
Eric, just a question on that clarification. As the bond is being repaid, some of those assets will be released. And for example, if we make $4 million of payments, City Hall would be released from that, right?
That might be a point of negotiation. Of course, the investors would want to keep the premium assets to the very end because that is the security that the investors have for the city to continue to make payments. So, but you are correct, Fernando, where you would release assets. You would have that built into the legal documents so that we're not over collateralized on the loan.
So in concept, they're leasing the property back to the city. for the use of.
The
by
city is lease and lease backing it with its public financing authority. But if the city did not make a lease payment, then there would be the ability for the investor through the trustee to say, we're going to take that property and we have the right to relet it so that we can create some lease income to pay ourselves our, the debt payment that the city is obligated to pay. That is the security behind a lease revenue bond.
And I just have a quick question. The security of the lease assets. We're talking about a police station, city hall, corporate yard, art center, and other city-owned assets. Which police station are we talking about? The news station,
new
or
one.
we're talking about the,
The news station. That is the premium asset for the city. The totality of the assets that we've got get to about 22 million. We're just there.
what about the other cities? I mean, the other city-owned assets?
Some of them are not appropriate, applicable. If we had to put some items in there to get the value to the right level, we would do that. But we've, for instance, and love to have Rick talk about this a little, but parks. I don't know. Do we have some parks in there?
I think you have Pioneer Village, in the original description.
Right, and some, without getting too deep of the sort of a forensic analysis on the title and everything, some of these are assets that we're using to create the form of having enough value for the transaction. But if you really get down to it, they want to make sure that the city's going to pay, which means the premium assets, the essential assets like the police station, city hall, and others, fire station and such.
Is it when you begin, when we actually, like in 2 months, when we begin this process, is when that negotiation starts? And will it also include the rate penalty for the payback if we pay early?
We won't know the rate penalty until the day that we sell the bonds in the market. We may have zero penalty because the marketplace was so hungry for bonds that day. But with respect to the when you negotiate the terms, we will build that into the legal documents that Norton Rose Fulbright will be drafting so that there's a well understood sequencing of releases when there's payoffs occurring, so that the investors know that that's the deal when they read the offering document.
That was my point, that I guess our negotiations would be when we sign and we start that process. That's when we'll actually know where we're really at.
Well, we can make plain the release provisions, the sequencing of those releases. That has to be done before we go out to the market. So investors know what they're buying, what kind of bond. As far as the rate penalty, we won't know until the date that we price, that there's a formal offering of the bonds to investors and firm commitments from those investors to buy the bonds.
Who usually buys these bonds?
Rick, you want to answer that?
Good evening. I'm Rick Brandis with Oppenheimer. Mr. Mayor, members of the council. We will be offering the bonds to every kind of investor. There are three main groups. One, the retail investor. They're individuals like you and me who want to invest $10,000 or whatever it may be. There are money management firms. We call them investment advisors. And then the big companies, the mutual funds like Franklin Templeton and Fidelity and Vanguard and insurance companies, and also bank trust departments.
Who's buying bonds these days?
They all do.
All at every
All
level?
three groups do. The institutional buyer, the investment advisor, and the retail buyer. The institutional buyer, they have the most money. So they carry the most weight. They buy more bonds than individuals.
there any interest rate advantage that people have to buying these? Is it tax deducted? Are they taxed on the yields?
They are tax exempt,
Tax exempt,
correct, from
makes it like a
federal.
muni bond or something like that.
They are muni bonds. They're exempt from federal and state taxes.
Makes it more attractive to investors, right?
Correct.
Okay.
The IRS created that about 100 years ago for local government to finance projects.
Have you done a valuation yet of the city properties in terms of what's going to be collateralized and how much they're valued?
We have the insured value schedule from, and that's the figures that we're using. So, you know, it has to be defendable. Again, we have Russ Trice and his partner Stepan from Norton Rose. They're watching. And they're the ones who are going to give the tax exempt opinion on the bonds that the investors rely on so that the city can get the lower rate. Because people pay for that tax exempt bond by accepting a lower interest rate because they don't have to pay taxes on the interest income. So I think that is, we're on the last page, which is Oppenheimer, Norton Rose, Fulbright is doing all the tax exempt opinion, but they also write the offering document that goes out to the investors. It's called a preliminary official statement. When that is drafted, you're going to be getting all these legal documents, but you want to pay close attention to that one because that's the city's document that goes out to investors, and it's very important. It's very serious that it's accurate. And NHA, we probably been working with the city for a while, and appreciate the business. So we're the municipal advisor on the deal. Any other questions?
I do have just a real quick question regarding the one that we have right now, the 2015 bond. Is that, do we have, I'm sure we have records of what we use that on, and then what properties were leased with this bond? And I'm sure we're making payments. There's not any.
It's a great question. There's
Bulk
four,
or
there's four
anything?
properties on that loan. I think it does mature. I'm sorry, I think it's either 2032 or 2036. There's like a little under $3 million remaining, I believe. And the interest rate on that is 3.3. And we've looked at refinancing that. It just doesn't make economic sense, but it may make sense strategically. Those are some of the things we really need to iron out first with your city manager and deputy city manager to make sure that we're doing the most effective financing, most prudent financing on the terms. But I know City Hall, I think Courtyard, this was kind of a consolidated refinancing in 2015 from a lot of things that happened in the early 2000s through 2010. And then the 2015 saved the city some money. We did that project. So there's some nuances with the assets that remain on the 2015, but we're confident we can work through those to get the best deal.
I saw the on the agenda, city manager, the Clarkson lift station upgrade is in there at 2.9258, but I'm not seeing it on this. Why is
Thank
that?
you. In the slides, that was changed to a to be determined project because as you might recall, Clarkson lift station is being funded through ARPA.
What we thought.
Yeah, so that gives us a little bit of wiggle room in terms of how much we borrow through the bonds, or we could just eliminate that amount completely. I mean, and that's the case really for all of these projects. Eric and I were having a conversation along with Jasmine earlier today. You know, this is still, it feels like it's moving quickly, but it's still very early on in the process where there's a lot of diligence on our end that we have to do in terms of how which projects are going to be the priorities. Well, we know Dinuba and Amberwood are the two high priority projects. Those are in the neighborhood of $12 million. The other projects, the balance of those $20 million, they are necessary projects, but the council will have to make a decision and staff will certainly play a role as to whether those are things that we really want to push developers to pay themselves as they're coming in, or if that's something that we want to get out of the way right now, and be reimbursed through development impact fees. But the most significant projects are the two that total about $12-13 million. But without that Clarkson lift station, $3 million, I think really we're realistically looking at more $17 million range for the debt.
What would the stroke be on 17 million as opposed to the 20 million? We're looking at 1.4 on 20 million.
It's like a 7 constant, so. What is that, Mr. Banker?
Putting your math skills
Put
on,
it on him.
on display here.
Just do a 0.7 against.
0.7 times
point-
20
Yeah,
times 1.4, so 980, about $1 million.
that much of a benefit by reducing to 17 million? 15 would be,
If it's 1.4 million on 20 million and we go down to 17 million, you're taking 3 million away. You're saying factors 33,
I'm saying
10% each
2.7.
million layer.
2.1, 210,000 reduced, so it's gonna be a little under 1.2. Call it 1.2.
Okay.
This is all early, We
Yeah,
wanted to put
Yeah.
something in here for the record.
This is
Just so
roughing
you
it out.
know,
Got it.
very rough
Um,
right now.
yeah.
Mhm.
We're
And what's
a
the-
ways off. We're
what's
hoping
the-
for a market rally in a couple months. So, let's be optimistic on that too.
This is the bond market.
Correct.
So the worse the stock market does, the better the bond market does.
Usually that's the case. Yeah.
Okay. Is
So
that going to be the case here?
pray for a
too?
recession.
We
I'm
also
just-
need
I'm just
development.
kidding.
We'll strike that comment.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
And then in terms of the pension bond, how much is that costing the city? What's the stroke on that? Do you remember?
I don't remember offhand, but that transaction, we restructured. You have outstanding unfunded liability with CalPERS. So there was 2 reasons why you did that deal. One was to save money because CalPERS charges a 6.8%. And we were in the low 4s, so we saved a good amount on interest. But then also the goal was to restructure it, take out certain parts of the unfunded liability with CalPERS and put it into a bond that created a more level payment structure for the city to budget around, which, that's what a lot of issuers do. You want a more predictable, budget-friendly type of repayment schedule. But unfortunately, every year CalPERS, they do bounce around. There's, an additional good year, a bad year, it does bounce around, but we reset it to a more predictable, budget-friendly figure for that. So.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of an actual number, our CalPERS UAL payment last year was 1.6 million. And I think this coming fiscal year, we're looking at under $1 million. So 917,000 is what so it saved us a good $600,000 to restructure that debt. But now our payment is under $1 million.
So it's $1 million for the pension liability.
Not forever, though.
No,
This is an anomaly.
next year it'll be
beginning.
1.3 million
Right.
in the next fiscal year,
It's going to steadily increase.
and then level out. Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions? Do we have any questions from the public tonight? Do we have anybody online or on the phone who'd like to ask a question? Please come up.
Rose Robertson, 1057 Mill Street. Remind me again, what was the amount for the pension that was passed 3-2 vote 6 months ago?
I believe it was 15
14 mil?
million, roughly $15 million, correct? Mhm.
And that payment comes out of what fund?
That's the general fund.
General fund.
Mhm.
Okay, so this new loan that you guys want to get will be also coming out of the general fund, is that correct?
It'll be secured by the general fund. However, we'd be paying it back with development impact fees.
So the collateral that I'm looking at is the art center, the city hall, police station, which was $11.5 million. Is there a list so we can find out what the Pioneer Village is value? And can you tell me what is the corporate yard that will be all up for collateral? What is the corporate?
The corporate yard is a public works yard.
The public works yard. Public works. And then also other assets would possibly be something like the fire station property, which is completely upfront paid off stuff. That's what they would probably look for and give you guys a list of what exactly you guys are putting up for collateral. If this 1.4 million coming out of the general fund on a yearly annual. So did I say all that correctly about? Okay,
Accurate.
thank you. Thank you.
To that question, since it's the valuations based on the insurance schedule, replacement cost, you don't really insure the land. So with the land, how would you value?
We just take your insurance schedule and there's a total value for that. And we can tidy that list up and make it available. You know, we all have that list, but let's tighten it up so that it's very clear which assets and the values attached to each for that $20 to $22 million target for if you do the whole $20 million project fund. But we can provide that promptly. And yeah. We can also provide the exact par amount of the pension transaction that was done recently.
I think it's important to know what the monthly and annual stroke of the city is. Strokes are,
Absolutely.
you know,
Well,
since it's coming
based
out of the
on
general fund.
what it is right now.
It's not a huge
Absolutely.
city and it could be material in terms of the general fund.
In fact, we've provided that schedule recently. You know, that chart, we'll resend that to staff.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. But you know, I'd like to, before we move on, I'd like to just go back and remember and remind everyone that, you know, things, you know, what we're doing, and, you know, you need to be a visionary and we got to look at things. And what we were at 10 years ago, we couldn't develop because we were strapped and we have infrastructure issues. And, you know, when they call it seasons, when there's change of seasons in politics, you have visionaries where you have different people, different opinions, you do different analysis. And thankful that 2 years ago, we had a change of leadership and we had a change of vision, and we started doing some investing and thinking about what could make the city more financial, where we could grow and we could invest. Yes, we talk about what the liabilities are, but I thank the city staff for working, and we worked out a payment development impact fees where the developer will be paying. And not only is a developer going to be paying, but if you go back, what we just approved, it also states that the contract states that within 12 months, he has to start working. So we have developers that have been crying and asking us to help. So when we start looking at these things, and I really appreciate the fact that we talked about our investment of what we got with our retirement, because what we just did is we extended it out, shaved the top off, and I'm just talking financially. We extended the payment where I've given us the ability to extend our money. And what did we also do? The city also hired in, we call credible people that can do the financial work. This is all investment. This is all a team effort. So when people come and ask, hey, you know, you're putting assets out there as a liability. Well, that's what it takes for a municipal government to grow. And it takes a visionary, and it takes us to hire right people to invest and to do the analysis to come back and tell us. You don't invest in a municipal government just because you want to invest or say, I'm only going to invest in the highest market when we're doing really well. We have to actually look at the general plan, look at our building, our methods. And when we start talking about, oh, you're going to potentially lose this if you don't pay it out. Well, you're not looking at the overall of what we're doing. This has been a long process, and it's going to even take us longer. But I would ask everyone to take some really a good general approach to looking at what you just approved in the consent calendar and look at the contract that we're actually giving our developers, and we're having them know this is a risk, this is an investment for our community. So I thank you for coming and doing the presentation, but also I would ask everyone to not just look at what the liability is. There's always going to be a liability, but when are we going to invest in our community to grow for the future? And this, by bringing this amount of homes, brings jobs, brings more homes that we're lacking. People are leaving our community because we have no homes to move into. So I thank everybody and I thank you for this, but I also want to make sure that when you start looking at this, what we're talking about, infrastructure is the #1 crucial point that we need in this community. So for that, I thank you guys.
Go ahead. Yeah, I have to agree. I think that we are lacking infrastructure. However, I'm a little more of a conservative and I do have a little concerns in regards to our projects that are in the works. We have some projects that are definitely solid, and those are the agreements that we do have with the developers. However, we can't guarantee anything. The developers are not guaranteed that their homes are going to sell. Because I could tell you right now, we have 2 neighboring cities that have done well when the interest rates were low. But because the interest rates are high, they can't sell these homes. They're dropping them by 10, 20,000. Right now, they just dropped another one by another additional 26,000. And I look at this because this helps me make these decisions. The other thing is, you mentioned a recession. Well, I can tell you there's facts. I've been here in the city where we went through a very difficult time where they had to lay off employees and cut employees. So those are things we have to look at as well. I think because I am a conservative, I would be okay with funding 12, maybe 15 million. Because we have some solid projects that are in the works that we definitely need. But do we have a guarantee? No, we don't. We don't have a guarantee. And that's the scary part, because we're saying all these homes, everybody's going to buy these homes. But you know what? Kingsford and Fowler said the same thing and they're struggling. So that's just my concern. Like I said, I'd be more comfortable doing a 12 million, and then the ARPA money was supposed to pay for the Clarkson lift station. So I don't think we should even include that. And then fund these 2 projects, and hopefully it won't take we're not taking such a huge risk of a 20,178,000. It's just my opinion, but I just think we're not very solid. These other projects, we're looking at least 10 years. If not longer. We're not guaranteed that these are gonna, these developers are gonna come. We hope they do, but it's not a guaranteed. Just my opinion.
Yeah, just a question on clarification, the RENA numbers, the regional housing needs allocation numbers. How does this actually meet those RENA numbers requirements when RENA is just zoning? It's not the actual construction of the units themselves that's required, it's the zoning.
Deputy City Manager, did you want to take that?
It takes into account not just what you have zoned and available for development or moderate or low income housing or above moderate. It takes into account how many units are actually built. So these projects will help with our housing needs allocation, and the fact that it will help with moderate, above moderate. And if we have projects that come in at a lower rate for low income or very low income levels, you actually need the units built, not just what it's zoned.
Okay. Are there low income units planned for the East Selma wastewater trunk line and the North Selma Dinuba trunk line?
Amberwood, I believe, is a market rate project, so it would help with a portion of our housing needs allocation in terms of providing homes moderate, above moderate rates, which don't require 30, 50-year agreements to lease to certain income levels.
Gotcha. So it ain't gonna help the RENA numbers a whole lot for
Well,
those two projects.
You have to remember that the zones of benefits for both the Dinuba line and the Amberwood line are huge. So there's hundreds of parcels actually included within those zone of benefits. So just because right now we don't have projects lined up within those zone of benefits doesn't mean we won't. We actually, I can think of one project that's going through the process right now that's gonna tie into the Amberwood line that actually they're proposing to include some low income housing. So what we have right now in terms of applications does not necessarily reflect, the number of low income affordable housing projects that we're going to have later on. So just remember that.
Right. And then seasons do change, as we heard politically. They change politically, they change economically too. And I think we have to be astute observers of the economic changes in the climate as well. And there's some changes afoot right now. So it seems like biting off a $20 million obligation at this time is a pretty big one for some housing that will come in maybe I don't know if it would come in right now because no one's really selling houses, but maybe in the future. And I agree, I'm all for development. I've been for development for 10 years. And what it takes is, having a solid financial rating, which I believe Mr. Scriven talked about, that we actually have. We're able to look at these deals and to get a lot of this financing because we do have a solid financial rating because we've been prudent with the money. And so that's why we're up here, to make sure we're prudent with the money and to cut through the talk. Some of the talk is like, houses will provide all this economic benefit. They will help. They will definitely help. But Selma has a 9.4, 9.5 sales tax number. We are commercially a very strong city, and we need to focus on that rather than just residential. So, you can't just focus on one season. You got to focus on all four. And in terms of the city, that means focusing on economic and commercial as well as residential growth. We can't ignore one and go after the other. I've advocated a balanced approach to growth in the city for years, and I'll continue to do that as I've represented the people. And that's what I hear from the people. People are for more homes being built, as am I 100%. But at the same time, we want to do it in an economically cautious and wise way, especially when we have the storms that we've had. Speaking metaphorically, these seasons can be very, very rough, and they can definitely bring a lot of changes. They could bring changes in, a year and a half. So, I think we need to make decisions that will stand the test of time and that will go through different political changes and be good for our city, not just for candidates who work with developers and have their signs on the developer's land, but for all of us city and all of us people, business owners, people actually live here and use the roads and use the facilities here and use the businesses. I think this has to make sense for everybody. And I appreciate this first step. And, this is my first look at it, so I need to evaluate it more. But what I'm seeing is definitely interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing more. I think the 20 million is just a way too big a chunk for a city that just took a $14 million loan a few months ago.
I just want to say thank you for this great presentation. Times are scary. There's always scary times. Nothing's guaranteed. We're not guaranteed that we're going to make it through that traffic, right? We're not going to be guaranteed that we're going to make it home tonight. We're never guaranteed that. We don't have crystal balls, so we can't see what the future is. However, I do see that this is a great opportunity. I'm looking at the area median income for 2023. The income limits, or actually the median income, is 79,400. So when we talk about low income, we're not talking about like people that are making $10,000 a year. I'm talking about a median income is almost $80,000 a year. So we had a presentation a few weeks or maybe a couple months back where it was a great development. I I guess, summary of what we have, right? And the number that I wrote down back then was 1,669. That was including homes and apartments. So it's not just homes that we're looking at apartments, because some of these people that are sitting here in Fresno County and in Selma don't make $79,000. They make less than that. So we do need apartments and we do need homes. I have 2 adult children that I would love for them to buy a house, but there's no houses to buy. I'm preparing them right now to save money so that they can buy those houses when these 16,000 homes come in, or whatever it is that we have coming in. A couple of things that you mentioned that I jotted down. I think you said a couple other things, but job creation, new housing stock, economic development, those are all music to my ears, because that is what I ran on when I ran a few years ago. The other thing, as far as, economic development, we have 2 commercial properties that are coming, that are part of the development summary that was presented to us. And I think the Planning Commission just had that presentation, which is a little bit more extensive, just a couple of days ago. And so this, to me, yes, we have risks. We do, but I've been just listening to different, talks and things, and this is pretty much the time to take that risk, because we don't want to be sitting here another 10 years later and we still don't have those houses. We still don't have growth in our schools. We still don't have people that are able to buy anything. So for me, yes, again, it's a risk, but the risk outweighs the benefits, I think. I'm sorry, the benefits outweigh the risk, because again, 1,669. Our RENA numbers are at 1,456. 2 commercial properties. These are all applications that are currently in process. And so I'm excited about this, because again, job creation, new housing stock, and economic development. So thank you so much for your presentation.
Okay, anybody else? Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Mendoza Navarro,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cho,
Yes.
Councilmember Guerra,
No.
Councilmember Trujillo,
Yes.
Mayor Robertson.
No. With that, we will move back
Can I
to
have a
the
discussion real quick?
vote's been, it's done.
I'm asking if I can
The vote's done. That's it. We already had the vote.
say something.
It's up to the council if they want to let the discussion continue.
No, I say we're done with this topic.
I just
I
like,
mean,
I
we've
just
already,
like to
we
say
already
a
had it.
comment. I just like to say a comment. And at the end of the day, and I say this really clear, is that,
Do we have a vote on that? I want to take a vote. I want a roll call to allow because they talk about rules of conduct and decorum all the time in these conduct. And now we've got someone who says he's more important than those rules of conduct and can speak whenever he wants and go outside the rules. So I want to vote by roll call on whether Mr. Councilmember Trujillo can break the rules, Robert Rules of Order, and speak out of turn and go on after all of us had our own chance, but he wants to speak again. So I guess since he's, big in the majority, he's the part of the majority, he gets to speak again. But I want a roll call vote on whether Councilmember Trujillo can break the rules, because he's more important than the rules of conduct and decorum. And I'll make a motion for that. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Robertson,
No.
Councilmember Guerra,
No.
Councilmember Mendoza Navarro,
Yes.
Councilmember Trujillo,
yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cho.
Yes.
So the only thing I want to say is that there's just a fundamental difference of leadership and what we think a vision for our community. We don't have to argue and get upset about things. We've been elected by community members. We've done analysis, and these items that are brought to the city are because we the council, community members, our community members, business owners, we have a vision. And our vision entails for us to invest in our community. And why I'm speaking is because you guys just heard, he attacked me personally about things. And I just think this needs to stop. I think that professionally, as elected officials, we need to have some order. We need to respect each other. And if we have a fundamental difference, an opinion as to an investment, just the same we had a fundamental difference in the police officer for the school. We voted 3-2. The starting of this investment right now, you guys are voting no. I'm just saying that we understand that we have a fundamental difference of opinion in where we want to take the city, but let's act civil and not attack each other personally. That's all I'm asking.
Then follow the rules of conduct, sir. Thank you. With that, we will take a break and we'll come back at 7:22 to consider the draft budget for 2023-2024. started again? With that, we will come back into session. Thank you for that break. I've always been told, if you have, rather than lose your temper, it's good to just take a break and take a breath and everybody just chill out a little bit and come back and let's start this meeting over again, okay? So let's go back and we're going to go to the draft 2023-2024 budget plan now.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Before you is two sets of documents. One is a PowerPoint presentation and the other is a revised draft budget. It was revised from what was previously sent out. And so what you see before you is two funds tonight, which is the general fund and the Measure S fund, and we'll go through and the PowerPoint that we've prepared for you to discuss what's included in the budget. First slide covers the general fund revenues. This is a breakdown of the revenues within each one of the departments of the general fund. The largest coming out of general revenues, which is Department 000. You'll see the total is 17,417,865. That's a combination of the various taxes that are paid into the city, along with sales tax, the franchise fees, and an operating transfer in from other funds. Next slide, please. The general fund is made up of 45.9% in sales tax, 21.4% in property taxes, 7.7% in charges for services, which are fees that are paid to the city, 15.6% in transfer ins, and 0.5% in other revenues, 0.1% in interest income, 0.9% in business license tax, 2.5% in transient occupancy tax, and 5.5% in franchise fees. A further detail of these revenues can be found in the draft budget document on page 3. And we'll go through and highlight the primary or significant revenues within the general fund. First one is taxes, taxes secured and current. The city's on a teeter plan, and so the current year is increased from it by 2% from what was budgeted last year as a conservative increase. The next significant revenue within the general fund is VLF in lieu of property taxes. That's 400.100.00 in the budget document. And that is budgeted based on 2 times of the current year's VLF that was received. Next significant revenue in the general fund is sales tax. That's budgeted at $9.3 million, budgeted based on estimates that were received by the city from HDL. And the next significant revenue in the general fund is transient occupancy tax, which is based on a 2% increase from the current year's amounts. Next, we'll go through each one of the departments and their budgets broken down by salaries, benefits, and getting a total personnel cost and other operating costs and highlighting what's being included within the budget and target accomplishments.
Thank you, Deputy City Manager Baines. So as Deputy CM mentioned, we're going to go through each department and give them an opportunity to all speak as to what we're really highlighting this coming year, fiscal year with our budget request. But I want to start off with City Council Department 1100. As you know, we've made significant improvements to these council chambers over the last year, and we hope to continue that. And the significant upgrade to this room next year will be upgrades to the microphones, a speaker phone for conferences that staff has in here regularly, and a projector screen to eliminate some of the glare from the projector on the whiteboard there, that some folks in the audience sometimes are not able to see the full information that's being projected on the whiteboard. So we don't anticipate reaching that $10,000 figure, but we wanted to put at least that much as a placeholder. In the next page for the city attorney, that's a pretty fixed cost. And that is based on our contractual amount with our city attorney law firm Griswold LaSalle. As far as the city manager budget, we have 2 employees budgeted out of that fund, and out of that department, and that includes my salary and benefits, as well as Tiffany Flores, who is my executive assistant. But additionally, last year we budgeted some money for employee appreciation events, which I believe really went a long way to reshaping the culture within the department to be able to recognize employees, to thank employees, and to really make them feel appreciated throughout the year, not just on certain days. And so that's we'd like to continue doing that, as well as providing ongoing leadership training. As you know, we continue to hire very professional, very skilled and experienced employees at all levels of the organization. And part of the draw for Selma or any organization is the ability to continue to grow and develop those skills. So as far as a retention tool goes, leadership training is a huge aspect of that. So we'd like to continue those efforts. And then I'll give it back to Deputy CM to talk about human resources.
Thank you. The human resources budget is made up of a percentage of my salary, along with a human resources manager and a human resources technician. And the highlights identified here is $120,000 for a class and comp study, and that's an estimate. And a new workers' compensation management system to manage all of the ongoing claims that the city has, along with a culmination of a centrally located database of our claims.
Deputy City Manager Keen will be discussing economic development. You could just go to the podium, Deputy CM.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
So this year, we have a new staff member actually started today. So we have salary and benefits for a new staff person overseeing a lot of economic development activity in the city through community development. We have some professional services for speakers in the downtown area, along with oversight of the Business Improvement District, as well as some conference and trade show costs in there, so we can get Selma's name out at the trade shows.
And specifically, the primary trade show that we hope to send our economic development manager to is ICSC, which just occurred in Las Vegas. And I think most of the council is familiar with that particular trade show. Obviously, the big one here is the Business Improvement District, and making sure that that gets off the ground, that moves forward, that the business, the advisory board of the bid feels comfortable with making decisions with what to do with that funding. And then the speakers for downtown, as Deputy CM mentioned, is $80,000. We had previously budgeted $30,000. We're carrying that over and increasing that per the previous discussion that we had, I think, at our last workshop, where we presented the major capital improvement projects. Keep in mind that this is a draft, so these numbers are very much all subject to change. So this is kind of what we're working with right now, but until we bring the final budget for approval, we're still working with some of these numbers in terms of estimates and whatnot. All right, moving on to the next department.
The next department's Finance Department, and the salaries and benefits in this department are a portion of my salary, along with the salary of a new finance manager, a senior accountant and an accountant, and 2 account technicians. And the target for this upcoming fiscal year is the completion of the financial audits, the completion of bank reconciliations, and the hiring of a new auditing firm through an RFP process.
The city clerk's budget includes a salary and benefit for the city clerk position and the clerical assistant 2 position, which is the reception at the front lobby. The highlights is we continue to efficiently respond to the legislative diverse needs of the city council, staff, and the community, to just provide that information to everyone as they come in on a daily basis and request that.
Raina, could you talk about what you do in terms of PRA requests, the public information work that you do, and how this budget is going to help with that?
So this budget will continue to provide that assist. We are increasing some amounts in the budget, although the overall budget actually went down 8.5%. But this will allow some additional funds to implement additional users for our laserfish system that we use to place all of our documentation. So it's easily retrievable with our laserfish. We're able to respond to PRAs in a rather more timely and efficient manner.
Chief Alcaraz?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. In front of us, we have police support. I can tell you that's approximately 13 employees, and I say approximate because there's a lot. What we're going to emphasize for police support this year is we're going to do some infrastructure improvements by way of camera improvements, communication improvements, as well as create, once we can get to full staffing, I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into police administration for some of our goals and objectives for the 23-24 fiscal year. But once we can get to staffing levels that are accommodating, we plan on reorganizing the organization, having a special emphasis team, which will support our police operations and support divisions, as well as create an avenue for development of our personnel for their career and future advancements.
Next is our 2,200 police field operations. That's a lot of personnel. Probably about another 42 there, 42 from police commanders down to cadets. So we're very excited about the new cadet program. This is giving another avenue for us to properly develop and grow the future of the Selma Police Department and law enforcement in the city of Selma. Additionally, our plan is to reduce overall Part 1 crimes by 3%. I say that because we're forecasting, there's also so many different circumstances in the future. So typically when the economy lulls, crime goes up. So I think 3% is a very achievable goal, but it'll create some hefty demands on our personnel and also reduce our traffic collisions by 10%. I think this is not a issue just to the city of Selma, but to Fresno County and the state of California as a whole. Traffic collisions are up throughout our state. So that's going to be our big focus here in the next coming fiscal year. And beyond that, the police administration, that's a couple of employees there, myself and an executive assistant. Our goals for the police administration really kind of will be modeled for the entire department and all of our divisions. And that'll be to have increased outreaches and community engagements throughout the city. And I'll speak to that in our department reports later. Also, to get our department to a 90% staffing level throughout all divisions. This is going to be and create the ability for us to have that special emphasis team to help deal with some of our more critical events or future crime forecasts that we're always looking at. Additionally, this fiscal year is to carry forward funding for our implementation of body worn cameras. Again, we are awaiting grant award notification, hopefully in August or September. And that is all for the police department.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. You'll see for the fire department's budget, it's going to be pretty straightforward and consistent with last year and will allow us to continue to maintain the services that we've been providing to the community. Fire administration is our chief and administrative assistants. And now we can move to fire operations. Fire operations consists of 21 firefighting personnel and along with 3 division chiefs. And you'll note that at mid-year, we did add our 3rd division chief, which saw a significant change to our operations by placing a division chief on duty 24/7, 365. And that's something we hadn't been able to do before. It was crucial to provide leadership and command across both fire and EMS every day, all day. So that was a pretty significant adjustment and advancement for our department. We are at 20 personnel right now out of the 21. So we do have one opening that was created through the chain reaction of the promotional process. And we do have, along with that, 2 opportunities for promotion within the fire captain ranks. So we'll be working on moving forward with those processes in the coming months. And fire prevention consists of our fire marshal and public education components within our department. And we continue our FICE programs and all of our other public education programs and events that we do throughout the year within the school and out in the community, along with part of our fire prevention duties are building inspections, business inspections, which we strive for all of our businesses within our community to receive a fire inspection on an annual basis. And we've been working hard to make sure that's completed each year. And I think that is it for fire. Thank you.
So Department 3100 for planning. Salaries consist of half a deputy city manager for development services salary, as well as a current assistant planner currently employed with the department, as well as going out to hire for a city planner position to oversee planning services that are currently contracted through QK. And then half of the permit tech position is also paid for out of that position. Some of the highlights, I think, is a big one personally, initiating a general plan update, which is a huge undertaking, multi-year process. So this budget item will likely be in future budgets for the next 2, 3, maybe 4 years. But it's huge in the fact that it helps shape, the community vision, development, and other, facilities for the community at large, and helps carry forward the vision of the people for how they view land use throughout the city. As well as $5,000 for, GIS enhancement, get maps and other information out very quickly to the public. One thing I'd like to add, the operating expenses with the hiring of staff, we should also see professional services decline over time. So there should be some savings there as well. For Department 3200 for building inspection, it's currently comprised also of the other half of development services for the deputy city manager salary, half of the permit tech position, and 1 building inspector. It also, in other operating costs, you have plan check services, which are farmed out to a consultant, as well as additional inspection support. The highlights would be, leveraging what we've done through the permitting system to try and enhance and streamline permit reviews as well as inspections. We've recently started using OpenGov to do almost real-time inspection results with some of the inspections last week, to where the inspector completed his review in the field using an iPad, and it became immediately available to the contractor what the results of that inspection was, with pictures and notes. So we're going to continue streamlining the process, improving the process for the public. For Department 5100 for engineering, we have 1 engineering tech position funded out of this department, as well as other operating expense for the city engineer position, as well as other operating costs consisting of proposed master plans to sewer, storm drain, parks and trails, and broadband access plan, which would help with infrastructure streamlining for project review, project planning, as well as streamlining just the overall permitting process. So projects know where infrastructure is available and where they should, we can direct prospective developers to propose projects. You also have capital improvement projects listed on the next slide. We included projects that are being currently designed and or constructed in the future months that were in previous fiscal years, as well as the identification of the funding sources for those projects. A long list of projects. We also included a draft 10-year capital improvement budget for various projects, some of which have been discussed tonight. You'll see the Northwest trunk line as well as the Amberwood trunk line on this list in the coming fiscal year. It's a long list of projects which we believe are very feasible to complete, as well as future year projects in coming fiscal years. So what we're trying to do is lay the groundwork for how we view projects and plan over time, so that we can identify funds in previous years, get grants out, start applications, start design, and have it ready to be constructed in the according fiscal year. And we also included a couple maps of this multi-year capital improvement project program. You can see on the map, using GIS, if I might add, color coded, so you can kind of gauge in what years where projects will be done. As you can see, they're kind of spread across the community. Try not to center too much in one area and try and hit the community, so every neighborhood feels
like they're receiving some portion of the capital improvement program. Of course.
It might not carry over to what. I- Because you have a 10-year outlay in what, projects, are we taking into consideration that like last year we had an overlay on right by the junior high? And we had the McCall overlay. But right immediately after we had that overlay, we had companies come and just tear that whole place up. Are we physically talking or do we envision what everyone else is doing when we're doing these capital improvement projects? And we're gonna extend it for 10 years. Are we actually having conversations with the gas company, with cable company? I mean,
So
do we have that?
as an example, we have a project with SKF where we're doing a street project as part of a sewer project, so that we're not tearing, as the council member points out, we're not tearing the road up twice. What we want to do is ensure that the projects are planned accordingly. We talk to partner agencies to coordinate in their CIP as well, so that we can coordinate. And obviously that takes a concerted effort to have an open line of communication with those agencies. So luckily this year, CIP for SKF came out. We saw the project, and I think it had been a project planned over multi-years. So we moved up our project to kind of coordinate and ensure that the road, when it's done, isn't torn up again. So we do have those conversations. I think in some instances, you may have emergency issues where you can't help, so to speak.
Well, I have a quick question because that was brought up on Floral Avenue, so much money went into repair that street. And now we had PG&E gas trucks out there repairing something. And now they've left that Floral Street with a huge bump. So people see when they go through there, and I mean, I've gone through there and I understand what they're saying. I had a customer call me, he worked for PG&E and he said, that is unacceptable work. When he worked for PG&E, they had to make sure that they flattened that street. So why is it that way now? And we should be doing and holding them accountable to fix those roads. We put way too much money into to repair that road and it's left unacceptable.
I couldn't agree more, council member. We can log that request and go back and have them repair their work.
And I would add, what's happened in the past with other work that PG&E has done around town was where they temporarily patched the trench that they cut, and then they would come back. I would admit that sometimes they come back after way too much time to actually level it out, as you say. But I think our job is to make sure that they come back a lot sooner to level it. I think what you're seeing right now is a temporary patch, and then we can make sure that they come back and make it to our standards.
Okay. I guess that, we're both speaking in the same language. Is there a policy that the city needs to adhere and establish to make sure that this becomes something that we have to make sure that's being addressed? Or is it that we don't have a policy for our public works, or who does administer that? Any agency that works on our streets after, who in our city staff looks over that?
That would be our Public Works Department in conjunction with our city engineer.
So would there be a process? I know we hear a lot about policies, but the actual process is what governs here, in my opinion. And part of that process is them posting a bond, an encroachment bond, if they're on city streets, right, PG&E. So if they don't come back and fix it within 12 months, could the city hire Floyd Johnson or whatever contractor to come out and fix it for them and enforce that bond?
Typically, yes, through the encroachment permit process. I would tell you that utilities like PG&E and Cal Water typically don't. I think we've asked that in the past from them.
I believe we should consult with the city attorney in reviewing the franchise agreement on what their obligations are for coming back and doing their work, because I would assume that they have some jurisdictional right to come and repair their facilities, but there should be in the franchise agreement some sort of clause for them to come back and
If in
replace
the
it. and
process,
replace
they
in
damage
kind
city
or-
property to get to their
Correct.
property.
Correct.
And I would add as well to Deputy City Manager's presentation, what you see mostly right now in terms of capital improvement projects is street projects, but I know with our development impact fee study that was created in 2015, there was projects that included also city facilities, parks and capital outlays for equipment. So we're working with the departments right now to put that together. That may not come with the budget adoption at the next meeting, but it is something that we will present within the next couple of months.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and council members. All right. The next couple divisions are mine. So we'll start here with 4,100, our overall recreation budget. This budget for salaries sees a portion of myself, Liz, our admin assistant. You'll see throughout all of my divisions, a lot of us are coded 18% here, 13% here, because we all kind of work a little bit within each of the divisions. For us, what I would really like to highlight in next year's budget request is we have done a lot of work to start to get Brettlinger Park completely redone. We're bringing in new playground structure. We're looking at the shelters. We're looking at the picnic tables, all of those things that we're working on. We really need additional lights out on by the tennis courts and the pickleball courts. Unfortunately, right now, we do not have the lights to be able to support any activity in the evening hours. And so because we are putting more upgrades into that park, we'd like to add a little bit extra and include lights over at the pickleball courts and the tennis courts. In addition to that, we're also looking at an additional $30,000, and that is for special events throughout the city. These are going to be your spring events, your fall events, your movies in the park. We're looking at different themed events throughout the year. So that request, again, like we have spoken with before, does have some potential for cost recovery through vendor booths, sponsorships, et cetera, et cetera. But what you'll see in this year's budget, as you're looking through, you'll see additional GL codes or line items within our budget. And the reason is we've really got to be able to track that more effectively and efficiently. Currently, everything kind of comes out of professional services or supplies, and that doesn't quite help us get a picture of what we're actually spending on these events. So you'll see the addition of some codes here, and the reasoning, like I said, behind that is so that it's coded specifically, it's transparent, it's easy to read, easy to see, and we're being very, very conscious and fiscally responsible with our funds to be able to fund these programs moving forward. All right, senior citizens. We are still moving forward without the senior center. We're still doing the programs to the best of our ability. We're adding additional trips and some enhanced senior programs and events within this. In previous years, a lot of these programs were operated out of a fund. Unfortunately, that's just not standard operating procedures. So you will see within this year's budget, maybe the last few years say $0, $0, and this year you see money. And that's, again, just a transparency thing. We want to be able to operate effectively and be able to showcase those numbers. So you will see that within that budget as well to be able to accommodate those needs. We have seen a very big uptick in our senior trips finally coming out of COVID. So you'll see additional money there so we can take our seniors on additional trips. And then again, like I said, more programs. My team is working on things like a senior prom and just some really fun programs. Looking at some maybe like a senior Olympics. We really want to start getting our community more active. And so the additional fund request here is to support those programs and those plans into the next year. All right, cultural arts. Here we are, obviously, we've spoken about this in the past. We would like to purchase additional microphones, or actually brand new microphones for the Art Center. These salaries incorporate not just myself, but also Nicolette and Samantha, in addition to supporting various instructors into the future with the goal enhancing our cultural arts programs throughout the city. So this is more than just the Art Center or theater programs like Cool Kids. This really does give us the ability to start to do more programs and include more cultural arts types events, maybe events like Arts in the Park, things like that, where we're really kind of reaching out to our community and going out into the community to fund or to do more functions and activities. All right, senior nutrition. Despite the challenges, we continue to see a steady use of the meal services, even though they have been moved to Pioneer Village. We do see a slight dip, obviously, given the location, unfortunately, but we will continue that service. My team is working on grants and other things to support this. So that is not fully funded by the general fund. And as well as doing increased nutrition training for our seniors. Again, it's great that we serve meals and I want to continue that program, but there really are a lot of educational pieces that we could be doing for our community. So we want to enhance those programs as well so that we're really kind of incorporating an entire holistic approach to this program in this division. All right, sports. For this one, I am incredibly excited. We would like to bring more youth leagues, camps, adult leagues, and camps within our city. So you'll start to see additional improvement at our parks and things like that so that we can accommodate this sort of stuff. The team currently is researching the opportunities for soccer leagues, pickleball leagues, camps within the community, flag football, those sort of items that we really want to bring into the community. In addition to that, this will also help us support, we're working on projects to actually bring sports to the parks on Saturday, random Saturdays, start visiting local parks and just having supplies so kids can play some sports. Maybe they've never played soccer before, they've never played flag football. These are the things that we want to start bringing out to our parks and give them the opportunity in the goal of growing our programs from there so then we can support leagues and those sort of items into the future. And I believe that is it for me. Thank you.
With regard to Public Works, there's quite a few equipment, pieces of equipment that have been deferred in terms of purchases that have now, I think, become extremely crucial, especially with our limited human resources in that department. The tilt trailer that you see budgeted here is going to allow for better transportation of equipment to and from the parks so that they don't have to, make multiple trips back and forth, and they can actually haul multiple pieces at one time. The dump trailer also is going to help with the efficiency in terms of, when they're this actually can help in a lot of different ways, not just with Public Works, but code enforcement, but mostly when they're cleaning up parks, when they're, they've got to pick up debris from different places. That dump trailer is going to be a huge asset. And then this is a carryover from previous budget years that staff hasn't been able to, because of the transition in the community services department, hasn't been able to complete this project. So we carried it over, which is the electronic billboard at Lincoln Park that was budgeted in previous fiscal years. And so, we see a significant efficiencies in the Public Works Department through the purchase of this equipment.
The next fund we'll talk about is Fund 295, which is the Measure S fund. Total revenues budgeted for the upcoming fiscal year is $2,648,000. That's based on an estimate that we received from HCL. And the expenditures are broken down into transfer into the general fund of $1,340,153. Police operations at $309,226. Fire department administration at $26,000. And fire department operation at $972,622.
Any questions on Measure S?
It's just off a little bit. I'm just wondering. Here you have 2,648,000, and this is saying it's 2 million. Yeah, I'm off, but it says 2,861,971.
Or you're looking at the ending fund balance. So what you're looking at is what the balance of the fund is gonna be after the fiscal year. So what you want to look at is the total expenditures. You're looking at page 29, is that correct? Of the budget workbook?
No, which one, what page are you on?
Page 29 of the budget, the draft budget workbook. Was that the balance that you were looking at as off?
No, I was on, well, 27.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Excuse me, that's the beginning fund balance. What I just went over is the budgeted revenues for the upcoming fiscal year, which is the sales tax measure S budgeted at $2,643,000 and $5,000 for interest in that fund. It's on page 27, just beneath where it says revenues.
Okay.
So the actual budget amount for Measure S is 2,648,000.
And that's tied to, just so people who are watching, don't do this, don't come to city council meetings, kind of understand if they're just tuning in. Measure S is a sales tax that everybody pays, right?
Yes.
Countywide that goes to Selma, but it's just Selma sales tax and it's 0.5%. And it goes to fund public safety, right?
Right, 60% police, 40% fire.
Okay. And so the fact that last year's adopted number was 2,695 and this year's is 2,648 means the city expects the sales tax revenue that this is derived from is going to be a little bit lower.
Yes, due
Okay.
to a drop in sales tax.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy City Manager, did you want to cover the next steps, the last slide?
And the last slide on the slide deck is next steps is staff will continue working on finalizing the enterprise funds and the special revenue funds. And so what we're doing is we're including a lot more of the funds that the city has or utilizes, and shifting a lot of the cost to direct costs as opposed to doing transfers from one fund to another for better transparency to show the accomplishments of each one of those funds as a special revenue.
Are you showing that in a percentage or just an actual number?
It'll be actual numbers. Yes. And then the next steps after that will be, we will bring a final budget adoption on June 19th.
So what's the timeline again? What's the next step? After
So
this?
Yeah, the next step is at the June 19th meeting, which is the next council meeting. We'll have the enterprise funds and the special funds tied up. And we'll present those to the council as well. And that same day will be the final adoption, but we'll get that information out well in advance of that June 19th meeting.
That's the issue I have, which this is kind of sudden, we didn't even have a budget, not to criticize, you guys are busy, I get it. But we didn't have the actual paper form in our, in our packet. We got it emailed to us after the fact, which is good. I mean, I appreciate that. We got to look at it over the weekend. It's just, I don't feel like I had a real chance to take a good look at it. So I'm appreciative that we get the next step. I would even be fine with a workshop, on the budget, just because it's so important that we could take a look and really dig into it.
Yeah, it's up to the council if you'd like to schedule something in between now and then. This is
Or for
the
final and I mean,
yeah. A budget workshop at
before
the
the
final.
meeting.
It'll be a public hearing.
Yeah.
What's that?
Want to change some of it?
No, I just want to see the whole thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, and go over it. Cause I mean, what we're gonna get it right over the week, before the council, we're gonna review it, but we don't really have a chance
Can
to
we
ask
approve
questions about
after
it.
we walk through the workshop?
Yeah, so the budget has to be adopted. I mean, you can adopt a continuing
do it at the
resolution. Yeah, you can adopt a continuing resolution if you want to adopt it after
an
the
hour
fiscal year.
Is council good with like an hour before the meeting, do a workshop on it and then make it an
Oh,
agenda
the same
item?
day, you mean? Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So we can
Yeah.
ask questions about it or earlier for?
Or maybe too. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna just
think- I
segue
think
in,
I
should
just
get a
think that we
date,
have a lot of questions.
and we
This
can
is
go
a
through
great,
just that.
just that,
but I think we're just
Separate.
going
And then
back
just
and
approve it.
forth
Okay.
because some of it didn't
well, we can
go
approve
with
it
the
at meeting,
presentation.
but
I'm-
we
I'm
can actually have
flipping
a
pages
workshop
back
and
and
actually
forth.
take a look at it. I feel
No,
like this is not
I'm-
complete. It's a good start.
June 16th would, or the day before the June 19th meeting, or the Friday before the June 19th meeting, is that what you'd be looking for?
I'm okay.
Yeah, I'm good
Okay.
with that. Your council good with that?
Sure.
Yeah, 5 or 6, 4, 5 or 6.
June 16th, which is a Friday.
I have a bunch of questions and this is a long night and, we can go on and on, but I just don't feel like I've seen the whole thing
But
here.
let's approve it that night.
It'll be approved at the Monday meeting.
At the
following
19th.
Monday. Yeah.
But then we can have a chance to ask our questions. If there are revisions, we can make the revisions, right?
Yeah, if council has any questions now that we can
That's great.
address ahead of that workshop, that would be.
I appreciate that.
helpful.
We'd be happy to answer any questions of what's been provided so that we can go through it and nail that down.
I just have a quick question. What's the operating transfers in? Cause I tried to match that to Measure S. What is that?
I can,
It's close to Measure S, but it's not one for one.
Other funds.
Are there? Okay.
so the operating transfer into the general fund is made up of 1,150,316 out of the ambulance fund. 603 out of the 250,000 out of the transit fund. 349,949 out of the ARPA fund. And 70,000 out of the public safety fund that is the public safety sales tax. Not Measure S, but it's like a 5% sales tax that Fresno County charges that we get a share for.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was that first number you gave?
1,150,316 out of the ambulance fund. There's
Ambulance. Okay. And those are the funds we're not seeing. We're not seeing the ambulance fund. We're not seeing some of these
Transit,
enterprise funds.
Yes.
tonight. Okay.
Is it gonna be this budget that you'll be moving the amounts to the proper location and justifying that on that?
So these transfers that are coming in are transfers to account for the city's, the general funds, the general fund's fair share of costs that are accounted for in the general fund for the operation of some of those funds.
I understand that, but what you had said earlier was that in the general fund specific accounting, we will start justifying them independently by a budget line item, and you'll be justifying where that's coming from and where it's actually being shared and expensed out.
That is something that we are accomplishing in this budget year, but not all of the transfers were eliminated.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
But you're getting
By
there.
next budget.
You'll get there.
We'll get there.
That's what I want to see.
And then for the next meeting, just from a 9 miles high standpoint is board. One thing I'd like to get a handle on is the number of total employees that we have with the city and the total payroll for the city. And I'd like a comparison between this payroll and the payroll, say, a couple years ago, just so I could see a percentage change in that.
Are you looking at the
Like
general
3
fund?
years.
3 years is fine.
The
whatever.
general
You do 3
fund?
years?
Yeah, if we could see like the last 3 years, that'd be awesome.
Just for the general fund or
right?
for all, across all funds?
The
Across all funds.
all funds.
Yeah,
payroll.
and I would say that's probably the more accurate picture because some employees are split between funds.
Right.
Yep.
Just
we can do
total outlay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Across 3
Yeah,
years.
across all funds, like deputy city manager, his payroll goes towards 3, 4 different departments.
But the key that I catch here is the fact that the city manager just said, hey, one of your employees, he spread out 3 different justifications, different budget items. We've never actually been able to see. So when you see a number and you don't justify it and we're not doing it correctly, I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't done correctly, just that's their accounting method. But if we can go more justified and understand that there's an actual, this employee is coming out of 1,100, 1,300, 1,200. This is the percentage, or you're saying an amount, not a percentage.
Mhm.
I'm good with that. And I would love that because that actually puts more of an accounting towards where every department is getting their resource funds from, for me.
I agree, and I agree with Councilmember Trujillo, and I look at the total proposed budget of 21,085,000, and I see revenues of 16.9. We need to know where the difference is coming
Yeah.
from, right?
Are we sure?
And those are the operating transfers in, so we just have to do our due diligence here.
Yeah, and
handle on that.
I'd like to give credit to Deputy City Manager Baines because she worked really hard with the departments, specifically the departments funded out of Measure S, to make sure that that particular information was a lot more clear. So where in the past, we were having one single employee, he was 50% out of Measure S, 30% out of general fund, and 20% out of somewhere else. Well, now we made an effort to say, let's shift all 100% of that employee to Measure S, and let's reflect that accurately in Measure S fund. And we did that across all departments. So I think you'll be pleased to see kind of how that shifted, but we can definitely provide, we already have that information on labor worksheets anyway. So
That's good to know, definitely how it's being funded. That's the name of the game right there.
And then also for each department, they used to give us an amount of the employees, how many employees we have and how many employees are that we need, and then that was a time when they would say we could use, 2 more people in fire, we could use 4 more people in public works. That gave us a gauge as to where some of the funding should be going to, if we're lacking bodies in certain departments, or do we need another code enforcement? Those are things that I would like to know, because it gives me a better decision-making when it comes to funding for each department, or at least helping with that, making those decisions or assisting our city manager to make those decisions. So.
we'll have all that information at the 16th workshop.
Anybody have any questions? Anybody who's here tonight? Have anybody online or on the phone?
The amount you just gave, what was the amount for the ARPA, the American Rescue Plan funds?
349,949. And this is a draft budget, so we're
Right, and was most of that for new salaries?
it was to cover budgetary shortfall. And so it was to cover for salaries, operation costs, and also benefits.
If you could ask us, ask the council.
Yep.
We'll ask the employee.
And what was the ambulance fund on after the ARPA, American Rescue Plan? What was the amount for that? I didn't catch the.
City manager?
I'm sorry, could you repeat your question?
What was, I received the 250 transit fund, and then she just gave me the 349,949 for the American Rescue Plan
Mhm.
fund. What was the one underneath?
Oh, Public Safety Fund 204, 70,000.
Public safety, and how much was that?
70,000.
70,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Anybody online or on the phone? Come on in.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council Member. Just comments on this budget and on being as a here residence and a business here in Selma for a long time. And I see the problems that maybe if it's in the futures that you guys look into it, some money towards the graffitis and the alleys all over in the town, if there's any budgets that are in public works could use that to clean up that stuff on it, make city better, like in Fresno and some other cities are. Also, maybe look into the future, hiring a city engineer full-time and available for some of these projects. That way we don't have to wait on whenever we do any developments here, is always having hard times. At least or maybe as somebody hired as a contract or subs have a more availability here as a 40 hours at least a week to do these kind of projects going on. Always is a problem on it. This is just my comment. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Did we say we want an employee count and a wage account for the last 3 years of per budget items, right? That's what we said?
Across all funds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we
Yeah.
know the sources, we know where it comes from.
So the employee count is something that's typically provided in the budget book every year, which we were planning on doing. Is that the information you're looking for, Councilmember Guerra, in terms of the number of employees that we have full-time, part-time in each department? Okay. And then the full cost of those employees across the last 3 years for all funds.
Right, that'd be really helpful.
Got it.
And we are, just to clarify, the city is trying to hire a planner. But city is not, and the city does have a contract engineer, but not a full-time employee engineer. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Any other questions? Anybody with any input? That will bring the draft budget back, and we will hopefully see everybody for the workshop in a couple weeks. 16th, less than a couple weeks, and we'll move on to the next item, which is a consideration of a resolution approving the local road safety plan 2023 update to include current traffic incidents.
Thank you, Mayor. Before you is a update to the local road safety plan that was adopted in 2022 that utilized 2015 and 2019 data. Using current data allows us to really see a current snapshot of the current conditions of various segments and intersections throughout the city. The updated plan includes, it carries forward the same mitigative measures for those intersections, but updates the segments and the intersection scores and priority list. So what it essentially allows us to do once the council considers this plan is to then target specific funds and prioritize projects to make improvements to theoretically decrease those collisions and severe incidents at those intersections and segments.
And how does this differ from the initial COG study? Does it just give it a little more, does it reflect local, bless you, local conditions more?
It's updated crash data. So the crash data that was collected was between 2015 and 2019. The data that was collected is the more current data from 2020 to 2023.
Did this change this a lot? The current data, did it change no, didn't really change the priorities, the ones that are experiencing the most accidents.
And I'd also say that it's not just the number of accidents, it's the severity of the accidents. So the severity score takes into account maybe fatalities at that incident. So you may see some intersections that may only show 3 collisions, but because there was a fatality at that intersection, it received a higher severity score, which boosts it on the priority to have it mitigated accordingly.
I'd like to add one more. It's brought to my attention, the corner of Rose and Orange. There's a gentleman that lives in that corner and he's been there like probably, I'd say maybe less than 10 years, but he's counted between 15 to 20 accidents because he's right there. This last one is recently, maybe a couple of weeks ago, the car was upside down. So yeah, there's a series that somehow there is a stop sign on Orange on both sides. But the car is on Rose, it just comes right through and that's it. Yeah, it would be nice. I gave some info to city manager already on it. So could you look at that, please?
So
absolutely.
I have a question for you. In regards to this actual approval of what we're approving, walk me through what the city, they gather COG, you gather this information. You process it, bring it back to the council. Council looks and says, hey, we have a project and next year, we're gonna do the streets. Where does this factor into our approving projects to adhere to fix that? Or where does this help us? Or what does it do for us?
I'll let the city engineer chime in, but initially I would say that this helps you prioritize where those projects
Okay.
should occur.
Okay.
It also allows us to target funding for these projects in future years.
Okay, that's what I want to hear because I'll admit this and maybe when we prioritize our budget and our roads and streets, do we have this conversation? And I'm not questioning you. I'm not questioning staff. I'm not questioning council, but that's nice to actually hear because we should be looking at that and gathering our intel. I know that 2 years ago, we said, we're gonna start from A through D. Roads, and we're gonna do the roads, right? So where does this factor into our thinking? And that's and I'm just saying it, that it's a really good tool if we actually factor that into our logistics and our 5-year plan to where we have the most accidents. But if we don't talk about it, and I'll be the first to say, okay, so what do we do with this? Where does this go? Should this go in next year's budget or should it go into our conversation right now that we're gonna approve projects? And that's a question I have for you and staff, because at the end of the day, where's it gonna help us more? Where's it gonna actually help the city? Or where are we gonna help the residents more with this, that we have this tool?
I would state that it definitely should be part of the consideration for the capital improvement project program. Additionally, I believe it already is part of the consideration in terms of where we locate projects and where we consider obtaining funding for projects. For projects such as these, there's a clear example of Safe Routes to School. You can secure funding for projects under Safe Routes to School using the document, and that's why we need to stay on top of keeping this data fresh. So next year you will see a similar item where we update the data again to see if there were any significant changes. But in order for us to obtain funding, the data needs to be fresh so that when we apply for grants, we receive, in terms of competitive grants, the data is accurate. We already have a project identified. We already know what's occurred there. There's a longstanding history of collisions there, so it should receive a higher priority
So we
score.
go to the legislators and say we have a need.
Correct.
I agree with Councilman Trujillo. I think that's a really good point. We need to not just have something we keep on the shelf and look at once a year and say, hey, this is horrible. These people are dying. We need to also work with our school district too. I've had a conversation with our school trustee, Nick, out there, and we're sick to death about people losing their lives crossing the streets just to get to school and getting killed. That shouldn't happen. And you look at this and you see a number of fatalities here. I remember Floral, and 43. I mean, it's a hot corner there. It's really dangerous. We're not the only city, but maybe we can be the only city that's really tackling this and working with the school as well to get their input to make sure that this is, like the council member says, we don't even have rose and orange on there. And I saw that car turn over too, and that looked like a nasty wreck, and yeah, really, nobody got hurt irrevocably, but until next time, and we need.
For the record, the data is through February, so that wouldn't be reflected in this report.
Why not? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah,
Leave that.
so the data is the data of when it was created, right? So in the next report, obviously that accident will be reflected and it may increase that intersection severity score depending on the severity of the incident, right?
And I think we need to keep refreshing, to the
Right.
council member's comment. We need to keep refreshing this information. Not just that, we also talked about having a grant writer on staff. And hopefully we'll have the physical funds to have a grant writer on staff. And this is what you look at when you're a grant writer and say, this is what we need a grant for right here.
I'm happy to say we have a grant manager on staff. So
And
they will be
will the
focusing-
grant manager be looking at data like this?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mhm. Because this is the type of data that makes us competitive in those grants.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what they're gonna ask for, right? They're gonna ask for something that shows what we've had, and we've got COG, their shoulders to stand on, then we have our shoulders to stand on. We're winnowing down this data and making it more particular and making that grant application even better. So that's where it pays off, right? where we get the funds to actually do something about this.
I think the term that these reports really, it's shelf ready, right? Having
Yeah.
projects that are shelf ready, so when the grant comes out, we can say, we got one, apply for that grant and we get the funds without a lot of circling back and having to do this report. And then we have to wait a year for the funds, right? Having the reports done ahead of time does make us more competitive and it allows us to plan accordingly.
Totally get it. And I'm gonna take this to COG the next meeting because the meeting's gonna be on safe routes to school. There's gonna be some funding that comes in and I'm gonna show this and go, God, look at all this. And I'll bet all of you folks have cities, have streets just like this. And there's gonna be some funding coming down from the state for the city, for the MPOs, and we can use this.
And I would like to say the GIS maps in this are really good in terms of identifying where there's a lot of accidents, but also identifying the high severity score, as well as identifying the incidents close to schools.
Does it have the time of day? Does it have the actual particular?
We can
when these
get the
happen?
background data for the incidents. The data includes it, but the maps do not. So we can get that data, and make it available.
Might be interesting to know.
The police department keeps those accident reports as well that we can access.
Great. Anything, anybody else? Anybody like to weigh in on this? Anybody on the phone, online?
Are we approving this?
Is this a vote item? Okay, is there a motion to approve the local road safety plan?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
I'll second it.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Guerra,
Yes.
Councilmember Mendoza Navarro.
Yes.
Councilmember Trujillo,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Cho,
Yes.
Mayor Robertson.
Yes. Item 13, council request to discuss the recognition of community members and businesses.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. As you're aware, we are working on a council handbook, which should come to the council for review and approval soon. However, until then, requests for recognitions and for members of the community or for businesses who have been in business for a long time here in Selma, those requests are coming to council for approval. So we just wanted to run these three by you so that we can put them on a future agenda. The first one being recognition of a 30-year anniversary for Layla Market. The second one, a 60-year anniversary for Cho's Kitchen. And we received a request from a member of the public to recognize the Gurdwara Sikh Temple for their service to the community. And so, and this can just be a consensus vote or a vote by motion to approve these.
Debate, any questions? Any questions, anything? Anybody online, on the phone? Consensus, everybody good with this? I'm good with it. Okay, great. Item 14.
Thank you.
Annual refuse increase for solid waste collection, disposal and recycling services report.
Yes, this is an information item only, but we wanted to make the council and the community aware that the new rates will be kicking in as of July 1st. For waste management's annual rate increase per the existing franchise agreement. The increase this year will be 4.07%, which is based on the CPI for garbage and trash collection. And so that will, you'll see something in a future agenda item, probably in August, approving, formally adopting these rates and then approving them to be placed on the property tax rolls. But that'll be a more formal process in later months.
Thank you. Anybody have anything to add to this? Anybody in the public? Anybody online, on the phone? That will bring the matter back. It's informational only, and we'll move on to staff report. City manager.
The only item to report is that we do, as Deputy City Manager mentioned, we do have a new economic development manager that started today, and we're very happy to welcome her. She comes with great experience from the Greater Fresno Chamber of Commerce, and so we have very high hopes for her. But other than that, just want to thank all of our staff for their continued hard work. You know, we had a very good, the Portuguese Association had a good event on Sunday, from what I hear, and I wanted to thank the police department for assisting with that and our public works folks as well for blocking off the streets for that parade. So
Great.
other than that, that's all I have.
City Attorney Dodd.
Nothing to report.
Deputy City Manager King.
Nothing to report.
Deputy City Manager Baines?
Nothing to report.
Thanks to both of you for all your earlier reports. You did a lot tonight. Thank you. And then our Community Services Director, thank you for your report too. Anything to report?
Thank
further?
you. Of course, I have things to report. This is me we're talking about. Good evening.
A string of lies.
again. You know, I've got so, see,
Whoa.
I get so excited. First, I would like to give a huge shout out to, what is going on? Is it
Oh, the ones next to you have to turn it off.
that one? There we go. All right, I would like to give a huge shout out to our Public Works team. If you guys haven't noticed yet, our new Ventrac system came in, and it is a piece of equipment that will make cleaning the basins, clearing out the basins in our parks much simpler. So they have begun training on that, and if you've noticed, I believe they started at the Orange Basin, and they can now come in. It can hit the steep incline. There's a bunch of cool features that they talk about that I don't fully understand. But the main purpose of it is to say that they are working really hard on cleaning those areas up. And now that we have the equipment, so thank you to council and to city manager for approving those funds so that they can get the tools that they need to do these jobs more effectively. You will also start to see some dust at Brettlinger Park. We are removing the playground structure there to start making way for the plans that are coming for the new playground and the projects that are coming to that area. So if you are asked, yes, that is coming down to make way for new. We will also be releasing an RFP soon for previously approved funds for the small play structure at Schaefer. In addition to Schaefer, we've also replaced our Public Works Parks crews, replaced the shades and a slide and a couple of swings at the main structure at Schaefer Park. So the guys are working really hard. We're getting a lot of work done at our parks, trying to keep up with the maintenance and improve the maintenance there. We also will be opening right now for our sports leagues. Our co-ed softball is open if people would like to apply. We will be starting our swim programs, our partnership with the healthcare board that will start this weekend, and it will run through the remainder of the summer until the kids go back to school. So it's very exciting to have that program open and available to our students. And I'd like to really thank the healthcare board for stepping up and helping ensure that this program continues on through this year. So I appreciate that. I would also, for the Arts Center, On Your Feet tickets are on sale June 16th. If you guys did not have the opportunity to watch the last show, Next to Normal, I would like to highlight that it dealt with mental health, family. Arts Center did well was after one of the sessions, they brought in counselors to talk with about hard conversations that are affecting some of our families, but provide resources to help the future. I think I'd like to say kudos to them for acknowledging need in our community and doing what they can to support those conversations. And with that, I'm excited that we are now working our Arts Center, Nicolette, myself and Jeanette, the exceptional for youth with needs in our community, are starting to work with ways that the community can work with our children with special needs. So the first thing that they're going to be doing through the Arts Center is actually a private showing for these children with special needs, so they get their own experience at the Arts Center. And I think it's important because a lot of times there might be sensory issues or different things that they're facing. So to have these conversations and make these plans and be able to accommodate everybody within our community is become really, it's a big priority for me and something that my staff has really taken hold of as well. So I'm excited. I want to thank Nicolette for her hard work and seeing her compassion for our community and wanting to serve everybody within our community. So that is all I have. One last thing. Thank you, Police Chief. He last 2 weeks ago, when did we do Public Works Appreciation Week? The week prior. He did come out and cook a homemade meal for our Public Works crews one of the days. And it was really exciting to have the homemade meal by our chief, but then members of our police department did come out and served our Public Works crews. And it really did go a long way. It made an impact. The guys were really excited to have that. So I do want to say thank you for going above and beyond on that. I know it made a difference. And the Public Works guys, again, they commented, I think almost every single one of them, on how much they appreciated that. So that is all I have.
Thank you.
I can't take any credit. I was just really hungry. So.
Our Chief Peterson.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, City Clerk, Public Information Officer.
Mayor, members of the council. As a reminder, I just need to emphasize that construction schedules are subject to change. And as everyone may know, that has been consistent. The Caltrans Freeway project is up and running. All of the current phase, which includes the northbound State Route 99 off-ramp to State Route 43 Floral Avenue, has been closed. The Floral Avenue on-ramp to northbound State Route 99 is also closed, and the southbound lanes of State Route 99 between Manning Avenue and Second Street have been reduced from 3 lanes to 2 lanes. Also, what occurred this afternoon is Caltrans has placed temporary stop signs on the east and westbound lanes of Second Street near the Freeway 99 ramps. And those temporary stop signs have been placed in an effort to reduce and help with the additional traffic due to the detours. So different, but in the point of all of that is to make sure that we just account for all of the additional traffic. The Golden State Corridors project that Fresno County has been working with has now moved to June 27th. So grading crews will be expected to be in Selma at the end of the month and not at the beginning of the month, as previously mentioned. We have our Cal Water infrastructure project that is scheduled to begin tonight. We understand that they will be working Monday through Friday from 7 p.m. to 4 a.m. on their new 8-inch water main in the alleys between High Street and Grant Street from North Street to First Street. We also have the Barbara Street Improvement Project that began today with the estimated completion project date of August 7th. And the Stillman Street and High Street Road Improvement Project has begun and is moving forward. We anticipate that that end date will be July 10th. The other thing that we noticed is that we'd also like to advise not only council, but city staff and the general public of other events that take place and cause significant changes in traffic, which include a pop-up event that will happen on Friday, June 9th from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. at Lincoln Park. So we just want to advise everyone of the increased traffic that'll happen downtown. That event will consist of food and local vendors in the park. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Police Chief Chef.
Thank you. That's probably the biggest compliment, being a chef. So Mr. Mayor, members of the council, on May 22nd, an unknown subject entered our Verizon store over on Highland Avenue. He entered the store and stole thousands of dollars of equipment. On May 24th, he returned again, the same suspect, and took more property from that location. On the second incident, we were able to get good video surveillance of him entering the store, taking these items, and we're able to get that information out to our surrounding agencies. On May 28th, the Clovis Police Department had arrested this suspect on a robbery case, as well as an additional burglary case, which then allowed us to file charges on this subject, who was from the city of Fresno and apparently going throughout our surrounding communities and victimizing our citizens. But I highlight this case because it goes to the networking and our ability to communicate and work well with our surrounding agencies so that we can be effective when these types of crimes happen. So I'm very proud of our personnel that had the foresight to put that information out, and which resulted in the arrest of a very serious criminal. So kudos to them. Additionally, on June 13th, we're going to be having hot dogs with the chief at Schaefer Park. Bless you. At Schaefer Park. I don't have an exact time yet, but we will put that out on social media as soon as we get that time, and then we'll get the date announced as well. Again, this goes in line with we're really trying to do a lot more outreaches in the community so that we have that opportunity to engage with our community members and find out what issues are truly affecting them so that we can direct resources appropriately. So, and that'll be all for the evening.
Thank you. All right, council reports. Councilmember Mendoza Navarro.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to staff. You know, as we go through these budget items and we go through the updates on the developments, I feel that, we're moving in the right direction, the growth. That was one thing that I envisioned when I decided to, throw my hat in as council, and just growth. We all have, kids in the community. We want to, we love our community. So I just thank the staff for all their hard work. I did get to finally attend League of Cities meeting, or the membership meeting in Madera. And they had a really good presentation about the, the water crisis, well, all of the storms that we had, and basically, all the extreme rains, and then this past winter, and then now we're gonna have the melting snow. So, we're still in, I guess, an emergency, what is it called? An emergency, state of emergency. Thank you. And then not only are we going to have the snowing, the melting snowpacks, but we're also going to have fires, because we did have a lot of rain. So there's a lot of growth out there. And so I was seeing the dry, when I'm driving, and I thought, oh gosh, there's going to be a lot of, I have a nephew that's actually with CAL FIRE. And so he said, yeah, June is going to be really busy. So, I attended that. I also attended the third annual Memorial Cancer Run for one of my comadres. She lost her battle with cancer a couple years ago, and we did that memorial run for her. Her husband does it as a fundraiser to raise money for other families that are in need. So I did attend that, and I attended the public safety swearing in. And I just wanted to welcome all the new staff, the new public safety employees, and congratulate them on, being part of the city, and also promote all the promotions that were acknowledged. I attended the Memorial Day event over at the cemetery, and that was really nice to see, everybody come out, and it was a really good thing for me as well, because my third grade teacher, I got to see her. And so I always remember Miss Barone, and she's just always a joy to see. Fresno Chaffee Zoo had their opening event, or like a special event for Kingdom of Asia. So if you have not bought tickets to go to this event, I highly suggest that you go. It's a really nice, you can't even, it's a nice area. You don't even know that you're in Fresno, basically. It's just really nice, new addition to the zoo. I was really busy, so I have a couple other things. I attended the Kingsburg Eats event in Kingsburg this last weekend. And I also learned how to line dance. So I'm really excited that we're going to have a lot of things. I was actually going to see if we can have a conversation to see if we could bring something like that here to Selma, because, it is an event, it's a family event. And so it's good to see the families come out. We do have upcoming the Selma Catholic Women's Club Scholarship Committee. We're going to have an announcement of the scholarship recipients on Sunday at the 9:30 Mass. We're also preparing for a wine tasting on July 15th. And I just want to say congratulations to the class of 2023, the high school class, especially my niece. She was actually Junior Citizen of the Year for the Chamber of Commerce, Romana Atkinson. I call her Romy, so I can never say her full, I don't use her full name. And then just on a personal note, I wanted to wish my husband a happy anniversary on Friday, 28 years. So that's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Trujillo.
I missed the last city council meeting, so I'm gonna bring back some things that I attended prior to leaving out of the country. So I attended the Raisin Festival, and that was a really good event, and probably we stayed there it was pretty nice. It was really, a lot of our community members were out there. It was a Friday night. I took made my wife get on rides, made Nick Sahota and Louis Franco get on rides. So he's not here, but It was really nice because there was a lot of people out there and it was really good to see a lot of community members out there. I also want to congratulate the Raisin Queen. I noticed that when we were there, it was really nice. And I know that the chamber did a really good event because I was able to see a lot of community members out there to cheer on the winner and the runner-up. On that note, that was, it was really nice to see that. Also, I think I attended a graduation of the high-speed rail, the graduates. And the other one was, I attended a public safety bond for the Selma Unified, which I'm one of the members. Really happy to report that things are going well and the money's being used in the right direction. On that note, I just got mentioned that there is an individual in our community that retired 50 years for youth football. His name was Haskell Henson. I'd like to see if we could put him on our city recognition and ask him to come to the city council, give him a recognition. He retired as 50 years for the Selma youth football. And I'd like to see if we can recognize him for that, or track. So if we could get him to the city council, it'd be nice. Another thing I'd like to, Amy, I just want to tell you that, my business, I'm never there, but my people keep on telling me that the art center is just the people that go there and they go to my restaurant or go to my little wine room, really talk really highly about the art center. And they're always coming, and my people, what they tell me is, this person's from Kalinga, this person's from Fresno, this person's from Visalia, this person's from Woodlake, and they're just totally different people. So that really means a lot because it brings, and downtown is closed off after 5 or 4, but it's just the art center and it's taken over. So what I tell the council is, I wish we could use the art center as like magnetic for everything else, for all our other business. And for that, I want to tell you guys, every city employee, I thank you for everything you do. What you see from all of us, we're just trying, we all love Selma. We have a different interpretation, but we all love Selma and we all want to thank you guys for what you guys do. I want to thank you for what you do. And on that note, I have one more. So, and I'm bringing it up because I know we've talked about cameras, and I'm talking to the chief of police now and city manager. Every week I get letters from Waste Management, and I have 2 trash cans in the alley. And every week I get letters of pictures of trash being put in my trash can. I have 3 trash cans, they're bolted. I've had a water bed. I've had an oven. I've had everything put in my back office, my back restaurant, and we have to tow it out. So I ask our council to talk about thinking about putting cameras in the alleys in some way or another. Because right now, as business owners, competing with people that decide to use the alleys as a dumpster. And I'm not just speaking it for my behalf, I'm speaking it for everybody else's behalf. I know I've fenced in my area, but I would like for us to put that on the agenda, maybe, or ask the city council, we could put on the agenda for our next, for our discussions. But yeah, this is what we get. And I've talked to numerous Fox Drugs. We all get the same. We're all getting, and it's not Waste Management's fault. It's a protocol they got to go through. So what I ask us as council is to think about that and bring it, and let's talk to see what we can get out of helping our business owners. And that, thank you guys. That's it.
Okay. Councilmember Guerra.
I attended the American Legion Post-12 Memorial Day program. It was such a beautiful event, like always. I want to give thanks to the Selma High ROTC. They did such an amazing job with their, I want to say they're dress blues, but I know that they're not considered dress blues because they're not Marines yet. So they're considered, they sure look like it, yeah. Also, I want to give thanks to the commander, which is Alicia Zuniga. He is the commander was a commander. Now it's going to be Ernest Escalera, and both of them do an amazing job. And then also I want to give thanks to Jim Costa, our congressman, that came out and gave such a beautiful speech. And he took time to come out, so it was really great to see him there. I also attended the badge pinning for our fire and police department. I think it was a beautiful event. I know without the senior center open, I would probably in the future would like to do a little something even more special. You know, I know they had to go to the, well, here, walk over here, but I'm not sure how that turned out, if a lot of people came out. But maybe we can kind of look at that in the future to do something a little more special. Because I think that they truly deserve it. And then I also attended the Knights of Columbus Scholarship Dinner Dance. That was a very nice event. They got quite a bit of people there. That was one of their larger events, so they were very pleased. Also, I just want to say same thing with our staff. You guys do an amazing job. And I know sometimes we're working with understaff and you guys are still doing a great job. There's things, you know, I have to give credit to Public Works. I mean, I know we're understaffed there, but our city still looks amazing, you know, and there's going to be a lot to come. And I know that people look at that, you know, just like Councilmember Trujillo was mentioning, we do get people from other cities and they look at our city when they come here to the play, to see the plays, and they compliment our city all the time. So I want to give thanks to each and every one of you, because without, you know, it takes a team, and I really appreciate that. I just have a couple of, not complaints, but some of the seniors wanted to know, when are they going to open the senior center here in town? Because it's a little of an inconvenience to go to the Pioneer Village.
I can answer that, and well, not, I can't give a specific time frame, but where we're at in the process is that we just got approval from Irma on our claim, because we submitted a bid almost immediately after the incident happened when the tree fell on the roof of the senior center. The insurance company wanted us to get a structural engineer out, which happened last week, to assess the full extent of the damage. And so now we're waiting for final approval on the bid that we submitted, and hopefully that gets approved here pretty soon. When that happens, because it's an emergency, we will be able to bypass the formal bidding process to just go with the couple of bids that we got, or do a selective bid process to expedite those improvements. But I would say it's going to be a few more months until that facility's up and running again.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other complaint that I received again from Mr. Joe Gonzalez in regards to his sidewalk. He said that, I guess, a few months, well, before Ivan left, he said Ivan called to schedule to go out to see, you know, where his, why they didn't put in his sidewalk. And then no one ever, and I just told him that we've had, you know, personnel
Yeah.
changes, and
Our city engineer, I believe, went out there the following day to inspect the sidewalk for that gentleman. David, did you want to share your update on that?
Yeah, so if that's the location that you're referring
it's
to.
right on the corner of, Van Horn and,
Right behind the Heartland.
Sure, so there was an address given at that meeting.
yeah, there
So
was.
I went out that next day to that address,
Mhm.
and there is sidewalk along that street. There were improved curb ramps that were done previously with like a CDBG project, a city project that had fixed some sidewalks near that address. So if there's a different location or if there's a different property that we need to go look at, I'm happy to go meet with someone and talk about it. There are.
I'm gonna say he's Van Horn in Nebraska. He's right on the corner, right on the
That's where
corner.
I went and took some pictures. So I'm happy if he wants to call
Okay.
our office.
I'll
or
get
call the city
that for you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, David.
For Temcho.
Yes. Yeah, I'd like to thank the staff for all the hard work you guys are working for us. So I appreciate it. I attended the pinning the badges, and it was really neat to see all our officers and firefighters in their uniform. You know, they look really, really nice. Then I attended a scholarship at the seniors for the seniors Selma High School. And that's a pretty neat thing because they listed all the seniors that got scholarships from all the organizations in Selma, plus also people with memorials. So it's a really neat thing to see all these seniors. They get multi ones and some of them got quite a few. So that's how they get some money to go to college. So it's a really neat thing to see. And I attended the fruit trail. And I guess it was at Sunmade. Buddy Mendes was there, and it's 20 years. Like I say, this first time I attended it. It's kind of like your Blossom Trail, and they had a map of all the fruits and the nuts in the area. So basically, you can go to different areas and get your nice. You know, we had some really good fruit out there to see. One place brought in their peaches and had peach cobbler, so it's pretty interesting. So it's been 20 years. It was hosted by Sunmade. Okay. Memorial Day, I always miss the one in Selma because I'm always with the Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association. We always have our picnic at Woodward Park, and we fed like over 250 people. And it's like over 50 years they've done it. And originally, even one time they did it at Kearney Park. So that's before my time even. So this has been going on for a long time. And did that. And then the Selma Portuguese Association had their parade this weekend. And on behalf, I'd like to thank you guys for helping, you know, making that a success. And they've been doing that over 100 years. So hopefully, you know, they thank you a lot for helping out, guys. Okay, that's for the whole city, from all you guys. Okay, thank you. There's going to be a senior breakfast. Some of it you guys served it last night. This is we're going to be serving breakfast to our Selma graduate seniors on Thursday mornings, like 7:30, 8:30 at the high school. So I'll be there during that. And then the biggest thing coming up will be Cho's celebration, and you guys are all invited. Okay, it's going to be June 17th at 3:00. We'll probably do a little program. Chambers doing a ribbon cutting, and I think I got a couple of the Congress people coming in, and then my Lion team is going to be there. Then after that, we'll feed you. So it's pretty good. Now, you know, even have beer and wine for you. So come by and say, you know, I'm just like to say, appreciate to be here that long for my family. You know, it's really neat to be in a community that you can feel good about because they believe in you. Otherwise you wouldn't have lasted this long. So, you know, and I'm inviting the whole town. I might be broke after this, but it's okay. You know, I got food for you guys. We got cake. I have a memory board I'd like you guys to sign, because once you all sign it, it'll be framed and put at the restaurant. So come on by, celebrate with us. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to say thank you to the citizens who've given me a lot of attaboys in the previous weeks, telling me to keep at it, keep representing you. I will do that. It's not that pleasant sometimes, but I'm going to do that. That's why you elected me and you keep electing me. So thank you. I am your representative. I attended a pop-up event at Lincoln Park. It was very interesting. Hopefully we'll get some more numbers, and I'm hopeful that that business improvement district will help fund some of this pop-up events, you know, maybe buy some chairs and some tables for pop-up events. I mean, they don't have a lot at this point, and I think it helps our downtown. It helps our businesses that are existing. And I think it brings attention, and like we heard tonight, brings people from out of town. And I think that's important, to bring other people to Selma and show them what we have to offer. And hopefully there'll be more reasons for them to come to Selma, including the Veterans Park, which is about half done, if that, and that could be developed more. So there's definitely a lot to do in Selma. I've been noticing the public works around doing a great job, been noticing the employees really working hard on this budget. Thank you very much. Really professional presentation tonight. Really good stuff, good food for thought. Very much appreciated. I attended the Fresno COG meeting, the FCRTA, the maintenance facility construction is coming along. There's a Selma PD unit, chief, that's been parked on Evergreen Street forever. It's got cobwebs under the tires. It's like a community, it's like a CSO vehicle. It's an old school vehicle. What is that? You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. We picked that up last week. That was a precautionary measure.
So it was parked there in order to,
Deter,
oh, okay, keep speeding down there, or,
deter criminal activity.
and now you took it away?
Well, it was out there for a while, so.
So that means it worked? Okay,
Well,
okay, all right.
I-
I was just wondering because I saw it there a few times.
yeah, it's, again, we'll start doing things a little more unorthodox.
Good deal.
But we'll do everything that we can to deter crime. It
Great,
doesn't mean
absolutely,
that we
whatever works.
will, because when you have individuals that are just adamant about committing certain types of crimes, it's just very difficult to deter that criminal activity. But what we can say is that we've done everything that we can do within reason, right? Aside of me parking a marked unit with a manned person any one location for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But we do everything that we can do.
So if we see places around town that people on bikes and other folks go in with the backpacks, do you want us contacting the PD? I mean, it doesn't seem like that drug enforcement is a high priority with the city, just because they don't spend very much time in jail, and it's a low impact crime at times. Is that something that you want us to report? Or how should we handle it as citizens? Because the general consensus of the citizens, right, is we call it in and nothing really happens. You don't organize buys to go into these places just because you go where your efforts are most rewarded, right? And I mean, you don't really get a lot out of that if you arrest people who are selling the stuff.
So I recommend any of our citizens call in if they have any complaints or think there's any criminal activity. What I would say is that we are conducting, we've changed the philosophy at the Selma Police Department. We do policing. So we're taking more of a federal approach in that we're going to conduct thorough investigations, get all of our ducks in the row, use intelligence data to ensure that when we do arrest someone, that those charges stick, or that we're able to bring a mountain of evidence and a mountain of criminal charges to at least ensure that they're going to go forward in front of the district attorney's office. What I will say is, back in the day, the buys and things of that nature, those things are just because of the liability. Those are not common tools that we use anymore. So we try to find criminal activity and then be able to guide our investigations in a manner that will be most receptive to the district attorney, meaning violent crime. Anytime that we see something and we can watch and connect it to a violent crime, that's going to be our biggest bang for our buck, and how we use a lower level offense to deal with a more sophisticated or dangerous criminal, if you will. So those people that are using and buying at a certain location, just because we don't put handcuffs on them, doesn't mean that we don't see them.
See them and they are.
We are definitely working towards data and intelligence and gathering that data and intelligence, much like the United States military, right? They spend billions of dollars in intelligence gathering, and they don't hit locations until they're fairly certain that their people are.
And the reason I bring it up, Chief, is because people bring it up to me all the time. People on bikes, not to characterize anything, but there are people who say, citizens who say, why don't they just pull them over and search them? I mean, I know you can't do that under the Constitution. It has to be probable cause, all that stuff. But people see that all the time, and they ask us, I'm them, I'm their representative. So, I'm bringing this back to the city just to know, I know the legal minefield that you go through, but it's something that I hear about a lot.
Mayor, members of the council, I'll tell you, we all hear about it and we all see it, but strategy is key to our overall success. We can't let the tail wag the dog. We have to allow the dog to wag the tail. And that just takes a little bit of patience and really kind of trying to prioritize our investigative resources.
I would imagine with fentanyl killing so many people, that's made it more of a priority too, just because it's just the narcotics are just so deadly out there. We won't solve that tonight. Thank you for your
If I could
comments.
just add to
Appreciate
that, we just stopped a car I would just say we just stopped a vehicle. Upon our vehicle stop, there were several gang members in it with 30 fentanyl pills in it that we believe that you were using or possessed to sell. So again, timing and strategy are everything. So that's what I will say.
Right. Yeah. And then I want to thank Waste Management. Really good job picking up with they last week we had a cart that was overwhelming, and they made it a point to get out and pick up some of the trash that fell out of it and put it back in. It was a personalized approach. Really appreciate that. I lectured at the church this weekend, even though I wasn't planning on it. I was planning on just going listening to the father's homily, but I got pressed into service because we had 2 people out sick. So it's going around. It's going around again. People are getting sick again. So everybody be safe and healthy out there. Do we have anybody else who would like to come up, say anything? And you were the choir leader there for it. So there were a lot of people out.
Teresa Salas, 1701 Dineo Avenue. 2 things. I believe that there used to be a ordinance that said you could not park a car with a for sale sign on it and leave it on the public street. And there's been a car parked for close to 2 weeks now. Oh, it's a little pickup truck. It's on the north side of Dinuba, off of Dinuba and Thompson Avenue. And I don't see it move from there. So it's got for sale signs on it. So it's just something that I noticed. And then the other thing is that this is the last week of school. Kids will be out for the summer, and it would be a really good time to change the signal at Barbara and McCall into one of those green with the arrow like you did at Thompson and Dinuba, because that's such a mess during school days, people going into Jackson, people coming out from the high school, people coming from the junior high, and it just gets really impacted there a lot. You just can't turn, and you just can't get across McCall. So I know I mentioned that at one point, but it would be, like I said, the signals are already there. Just change it to one of those like you did on Dinuba and Thompson. I think it would really improve circulation there. Thank you.
Anybody else? Anybody on the phone or online? Thanks everybody for coming out tonight. We're adjourned.